Good evening and welcome to the Timberlane Regional School Board meeting for Thursday, June 20th, 2019. I'd like to take a moment of silence for our troops that put themselves in harm's way. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Belcher, if you could, take the roll call vote, please.
Brian Boyle.
Here.
Lee Doobie.
Here.
Kim Farah.
Here.
Sheila Lowe's.
Here.
Sarah Mockamer.
Here.
Sean O'Neill.
Here.
Kristen Savage. Sue Sherman.
Here.
Jennifer Silva. Seated at the board table this evening are the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Earl Metzler, and Student Representative Kyle Duffy. The presence of other district administrators as well as Timberlane Teacher Association officers will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Okay, we can start with the approval of the minutes for the May 29th and June 6th.
I have a correction.
Okay.
Let's make a motion to accept it first, or can I just correct it? I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. Regular board meeting of June 6th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Any time to read it?
First page. Kathy, seated at the board table, Dr. Earl Metzler, Superintendent of Schools. He wasn't here.
Oh, you're correct. Thank you. That'd be Dr.
That would be
Wilson.
Dr. Wilson, right?
Thank you.
That's all I have.
So is there, that's a motion to change that. I would just consider that a
Yeah, we'll just take the typo
clerical
out of
change.
It was
it.
just,
Does anyone else have anything else? If not, call the question. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? And all those abstained? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1. Motion passes. All right. That was the
You have two
sixth.
sets of non-public. One is sealed, which we can hand out if you're ready. And then we have one non-public session. Session 1 is public. Two sessions.
make a motion to accept the non-public session 1 minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Thank you.
Is that elect?
Hi, Kristen.
If nobody has anything, I'd like to call the question. These are for the non-public session 1 from June 6th. Minutes. All those in favor?
5.
All those opposed?
I was in favor.
You in favor?
I was in favor, yes.
Oh.
So that's 6 in favor, and then,
I raised my hand in my mind.
All those opposed, and then all those abstain, 2 abstentions. So 602.
Thank you.
You leaving these sealed?
No, that's the second set. That was the first set
Public
that went.
portion.
Yeah,
These are the-
no, we're-
I'll make this motion to accept the non-public session 2.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been
Discussion.
made and seconded. You call the question? All those in favor? All those opposed?
Dave,
All those
are
abstain.
you in favor?
I'm abstaining. Tough night for me, sorry.
Okay, so
2 abstentions, and I believe it was 602 again.
Need those.
Those are still
Yeah, those
sealed.
gotta come
yes,
back.
yeah.
Sorry.
So it was Mrs. Savage and Mr. Doobie abstaining, right?
I abstained from the first one, not the second one.
Okay, so that's 7-2 then. Make sure we get this right.
No.
702.
7-0.
No,
That's
we
not
only have
good.
people here.
602.
602.
Well, our numbers were wrong in the first 2 then.
Schools are, we can make all those mistakes.
No, I don't
No.
think you were wrong. I think it's 602 on both votes. It was just the
Kristen
different.
voted on one, but not the other.
I abstained on the first one.
It should be
The second
701,
one.
probably, right?
I don't know, maybe we should just re-vote it.
I'm sorry, I
Oh,
apologize.
no. Who voted yes on the first one? Can you raise your hands?
First
First set of
non-public.
mis-
The first non-public.
First non-public?
Who voted yes?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay.
It's Lee and Kristen on this, Lee and Sarah, I'm sorry, on the second one, so it's 602, it's just different people, that's
Yeah,
what's
that's
confusing. You got it.
Okay, and
Right?
6.
Lee, you abstained on the
The
second one.
second one I abstained.
Okay, all set?
Got it.
All
I'm
right,
all
we'll
set.
move on
Thank you.
to our
Appreciate that.
new student representative.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Duffy. Some of the board has already met me. This will be my first week giving the school report. I'm excited to talk about all the great activities that we had going on in the last few weeks of school since the last school board meeting. So I'm going to start with Atkinson Academy. They had a super packed last week of school. On Monday and Wednesday, they saw outside field trips. They went to Adventure Lore and Pope Field for their annual school field day. Fifth graders had a super exciting week. They did their move up to the middle school on Tuesday. They learned about the tween summer reading program, and they had their last celebration and graduation on Friday, parading the halls as they board the bus one last time to go home, bringing back those Atkinson Academy memories. Moving right on to Pollard, on June 4th, the Pollard 4th and 5th grade chorus, they went to the Fisher Cats game and sang the national anthem at the game, and it was followed by a great night of baseball. And thanks to all those that are making that possible. It shows kind of the connection that we have with music and how great the music program is here in our district. On Friday, June 7th, Pollard also had a successful field day for all their students. On June 12th, they had a fun-filled wellness day where students participated in different smart living activities throughout the day, kind of exploring different ways of trying to stay healthy. And finally, the 5th graders sang, celebrated, and graduated on Monday, June 10th, but they didn't leave without donating their class gift, a wooden penguin, which by an outstanding vote was named Pengu Nugget. On Sandown Central, reading and literature was really important in the last few weeks of Sandown Central's year. They had a summer reading initiative come in and talk to the kindergartners, and they also renovated their library, which perfectly fit the school's needs. On the 11th and 12th of June, Sean the storyteller sang and acted out fables and folk tales for the students, followed by an ice cream social attended by the families of the school. And all students had the ability to enjoy field day activities, and their fan favorites were the balloon artist and face painting. Moving on, right on to Sandown North, their 5th graders hosted a hit new tradition with the STEAM fashion show. They spent a few weeks using recyclable items to create clothing items, and then they showed it all off on the runway at the end of school, which was very exciting. They think they're going to make that one a tradition. Everybody loved it. And congratulations to the recipients of the Citizenship Award at their 5th grade breakfast, Ella Hill, Ashley Salafia, and Dylan Smith. So congrats to them. And the 5th graders, they closed out their year with a skit in which they reminisced on their Sandown North days from their retirement home, Sundown North, where they talked about all the important lessons they learned back in their elementary school. And the middle school wishes the best to its retiring faculty, Paul Kirouac, Madame Lacourse, and Maria Stack. The 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they all enjoyed their exciting end-of-year activities with field trips and in-school events ranging from the Rocky Shore field trip to a team trip to Bodeborg escape rooms down near Boston. I'm sure the 8th grade dance went well all around. It was a great way to close out the year with all of your best friends. And congrats to all the 8th graders on their first successful outside graduation. We can't wait to see you guys all at the high school with us. And the high school, very busy, obviously. Congrats to the class of 2019, June 8th. Beautiful day. Everybody enjoyed it. Smiles all around. And we wish you guys good luck in your future ventures, class of 2019, when we know you're going to do great things. Secondary congratulations to class essayist Adriana Quirk, class salutatorian Sarah Padalero, and class valedictorian Cooper Oreo. We also know you guys are going to go out there and do great things and change the world. Underclassmen finals at the high school, they went very smoothly and gave the year a nice closing out. Great job, everyone. We got those done. It's finally over. We can get to some summertime. And at the end of the week, I think something that's under-advertised and underrepresented, the Timberlane players hosted their one-act plays, written almost totally by students in the playwriting class at the high school, and they were performed by the players. Some plays explored deep and dark concepts of society and the mind, while some sent the audience into hysterical laughter like, "Is it egg?" I really recommend next time those come around, you should try it out. They were fantastic. I had a great night. And additionally, from June 23rd to the 28th, multiple students from the high school were selected to go to Boys and Girls State, an American Legion-run program in which you simulate local and state government. And the students for Girls State were Meg Query and Kaya Beckerman, and the students going to Boys State will be myself, Nick Longchamp, Joe Friel, Luke Ward, and Ben Swanee. We will see you all next year in the fall. Great work on another fantastic year in high school, and have a safe summer. Thank you guys so much, and I'm excited to working with you more in the future.
Thank you, Kyle. None. Okay, so we'll move on to our delegates and individuals. We have two right here. Sue Clark. Would you like to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Sue Clark. I'm from Danville. My son James is an incoming junior at the high school. I'm here on behalf of the high school Owls ice hockey team. Go Owls. Here's my mom outfit for the rink. Usually not shorts, though. Basically, I'm just coming to ask for your support. We've had some questions about the number of players that we'll have. We have a lot of incoming freshmen who are going to play, so there was a question about their skill level. We've always had freshmen on the team. We've always had low numbers, at least the past 3 years. Our hope is for 20. As of today, we have 16 firm. We have a parent who is a hockey coach at Malden Catholic who is going to volunteer his time, Chris Kusher, to do a clinic and evaluation on Monday evening at Haverhill Valley Forum at 7:10. So if you know any high school players who are interested in the team, that would be a great time to have them come and see us. What else can I tell you? Down the pipeline, we have a lot of people in 6th and 7th and 8th graders who want to play. So we're really hoping that the team can be held next year so that we don't lose momentum. To have no team and then to try to pick it back up again, I think, is really going to take some time. I know we'd have to come before you again, then asking for funding, et cetera. When we had a meeting with the athletic director and the principal, we were told that they weren't the only people who had a decision in this, that the superintendent as well as the school board had a say in it. So that's why I'm here today, to ask you to kind of keep your ears open and wait for us to have the assessment to be able to come back and either give another report to you, or I know we'll talk with Mr. Fantasia as well as Dr. Metzler and see where that's at. But I just wanted to basically come and say we really hope to save the team. So. I don't know if anyone has any questions or.
You want any
Yeah,
response?
go ahead.
Yeah, we typically don't respond, but
Oh, sorry.
it's okay. Yeah, I've been reaching out, trying to find any owls that can skate. 20 is the magic number, but we can
Right.
work around that a little bit. We have some NHAA rules in terms of, because there's been a lot of talk about a club team, about a JV team.
Right.
I'm with you.
Right.
Once you eliminate something, it's very hard to bring back.
Right.
So we appreciate all your efforts. I know the parents. Again, just to reiterate, to get kids to the rink in Haverhill on Monday night at 7:10.
Yep.
It'd be great. And I know we have a lot of younger kids in the middle school that are interested.
Right.
We need to do what we can to kind of save this. And we've saved a couple programs that were on the brink a few years ago, and they've gone on and they're doing well. So it's our hope. So there wasn't any action plan tonight at the board level. I wasn't making any recommendation.
Right.
We're like hurry up and waiting and hoping
Right,
that
okay.
we'll have enough.
Yeah, because we played with 13 last year. We didn't forfeit any games. Sometimes the kids were tired, but they were happy.
Yeah, ideally, we talked a little bit. I mean, for hockey numbers, it's nice to have 3 lines.
Yep.
And then to have perhaps a couple other other skaters, just in case of injury or illness or whatever. And
Right.
and it's nice to have 2 goalies. So that's where I think the number 20 came from.
Okay.
So if it's 17 or 18, 16 is more than 13. So it sounds like we're in pretty good shape. We get a commitment.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay.
So again, I know the parents have been working really hard on this to get kids to commit,
Yeah.
and that's great.
Yeah.
So we're in better shape than we were a month or 2 ago.
Yes.
And we have plenty of time.
Yes.
Plenty of time. So
Okay.
that good?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
So
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is Ryan Richmond from TTA.
Thank you. Ryan Richmond, President of the Timberlane Teachers Association. On behalf of the TTA and the TSSU, I'd like to thank the professional and paraprofessional staff of the district for another successful year. We'd also like to congratulate the retirees of the district and thank the school board members and administrators that were present to wish a fond farewell to people who have given decades, even a lifetime, to this district. While everyone is enjoying a relaxing and recharging summer, the TTA will continue to be fighting for the district professionals. We will be helping the administration adapting to the terms of the new collective bargaining agreement. We're excited to advise the district on the 2 days before school starts on the professional development there. We'll continue to fight for smaller class sizes, lower special education caseloads, and the resources that our professionals need in order to provide the opportunities that our students deserve. I'd also like to, on a personal note, welcome Mr. Duffy to the board. I've had the great opportunity to work with him in a lot of different capacities, and he has proven his ability. He'll be an asset, I'm sure. Most significantly, he is the president of Government Club. I know, thanks to Ms. Jean Marie Ward, you know of their great successes at Harvard Model Congress. But you may not know that at Youth in Government up in Concord back in April, the Timberlane Government Club won half of all of the awards, more awards than any school in the entire state, of which Mr. Duffy won the Statesman Award. So should the chairman or Ms. Belcher need any advice on how to run an efficient board, you have an expert now. So we wish to wish everyone a happy and safe summer. Recharge, because the end of August will be here soon enough, and happy Pride. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, first order of business is going to be our Eagle Scout projects. We have 2 of them tonight, and the first one is a video that Dean's going to start for us.
So I spoke to Mrs. Deotis back at the Academy principal regarding what the Academy needed to give back to the community, and she responded with a little free library for books for readers of all ages and backgrounds. It sparks creativity and fosters a sort of neighborhood community through book exchanges around the world. Through these low free libraries, millions of books are exchanged each year. So Here are the dimensions of the Little Free Library. It is all wood.
Just make sure we're
Painted
clean that from the
limited
beginning.
edition, so it's a little bit higher quality. It has a glass door and has a little.
Sorry about that, I just want to make sure it's playing
So I
from the
spoke to
beginning.
Mrs. Davis of Atkinson Academy, the principal, regarding what the academy needed to give back to the community, and she responded with a Little Free Library for books for readers of all ages and backgrounds. It sparks creativity and fosters a sort of neighborhood community through book exchanges around the world. Through these Little Free Libraries, millions of books are exchanged each year. So here are the dimensions of the Little Free Library. It is all wood, painted limited edition, so it's a little bit higher quality. It has a glass door and has a little lock so the door does not fling open. It is waterproof, so none of the books will get wet and develop mold. It is 21 inches wide, 24 inches tall from the bottom to the top of the bell tower, and 16 inches deep. On the next slide, there are some side views. So the proposed design is a 6-inch diameter granite post, sunk into the ground, 48 inches deep, and 36 inches high. 36 inches high because that is the ADA regulated rule for handicap access. In the next slide, it will show that. It is designed so that someone in a wheelchair will be able to reach it and put in books and take out books as they please, as well as cars who pull up can put books in and take books out without actually having to leave the safety of their vehicle. So this is the proposed Atkinson location. We have the building plans for Atkinson Academy, where the little red line is where it is proposed to be with the arrow pointing towards that line. But on the next slide, there is a more comprehensible photo taken from Google Images, where the red arrow is pointing on the spot that the proposed Little Free Library would be. As you can see, if a car were driving from the Atkinson Police Station to the Atkinson Town Hall towards the school, the Little Free Library would be on their side of the road, and they would see it and pull right in, drop off the books, and pull out as normal, and go on their merry way. And if it were on the other side of the sign, then it would be on the opposite side of the road as you're going down, and you wouldn't be able to see it if you're on the right side of the road. So this just seems the most convenient. It's right up front, but it's not too close to the road that it's in danger of being hit by cars or snowplows. Here is another photo. If you're coming down the road, this is what it would look like. This is what the area looks like. Another one closer. And then here is a little drawing of what it might look like and where and position of the entire island it would be. So now we have the Pollard location. Pollard already has a Little Free Library. So here is a image of it across the street. It is behind a sidewalk, so it's not quite accessible from a car standpoint, but it is accessible and is handicapped accessible as well. It has a little plaque with Pollard School, which is also on the budget for the Atkinson one as well, one that says Atkinson's Academy. There's a sign that says the Little Free Library, take a book, return a book, which is the premise of the Little Free Library, and then who built it, which would be the Plastow Girl Scout Troop, 11190. And then one more photo of the entire thing really close up with the wooden poles holding it up and the Little Free Library standing. So the proposed budget, the Little Free Library itself is $500. Registration, $35. The tax for the Little Free Library, $70. Granite post, $600. Concrete, $83. Mixer rental, $85. LED lighting, $76. Sign, $100. Granite curbing, $125. Mulch, $12. And flowers, $25. The Little Free Library itself has already been paid off by a mixture of Mrs. Deotis and the Night Owls, who paid off the Little Free Library already. The registration is just for their Free Library website. They need to register these libraries so they can be considered official. Tax and granite posts are pretty self-explanatory, as well as the concrete. Mixer rental, that's for the concrete. LED lighting, that would be solar, so the lights are always on the Free Little Library, so that it is always illuminated, so it can be used in either the night or the day. And it makes it look a lot nicer, and it wouldn't need to be maintained or have electricity pumped to it because it would be all solar. A sign, granite curbing to make it its own little, in granite curbing, mulch, and flowers to make it its own little area where it would look a lot nicer in the island instead of just being a piece that sticks out. It will be its own centerfold, and the total cost of the entire project would be $1,711. $500 of it already paid, so $1,211, which would be fundraised through car washes, going to areas in the local community and asking them for donations, things like that. Basically fundraised by myself and the fellow scouts that helped me through my Eagle project. That is all I have to say. Thank you for listening and considering the Eagle project.
Okay, so for anybody that's wondering why we had a video, is Mr. Friel was not available to attend tonight. So we did pull some resources together. So huge thanks to Dean for getting him into the TV studio.
He's at Penn State, right?
He's at Penn State for a wrestling camp.
Yes.
Ohio State.
Yes.
Oh, Ohio State, all right.
Yes. So, I mean, huge thanks to Dean for allotting his time to help out with this so we could get his project approved in the time he needed.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions? Sue?
I don't have any questions, just to give you some information about the Pollard one. That was the Girl Scouts that did that down in Plasto, and it's been really pretty successful. It's out there so that people see it. I think it was vandalized once, but we quickly got it repaired. The Scouts got right on it, the Girl Scouts got right on it. It's a great little, it's a national effort, so I'd like to make a motion to accept the project.
A second.
Motion's made and seconded. Going on with some other questions. Go ahead.
This is going to be done this summer?
Yes.
Okay.
The only question I have, it's going to fit in all with the maintenance and stuff that you were going to be taking care of it.
Absolutely.
Going forward, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything else? Not, call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no.
We have another one.
Yep. Next one.
Slide over and let you take the middle seat.
Playing split personality tonight. So, as you guys already know, my name is Kyle Duffy, and for my Eagle Scout project, I'm representing Troop 9 of my hometown of Atkinson, New Hampshire. Oh, okay, there we go. So, my project statement is to beautify the area surrounding the walkway in between the upper and lower parking lots at Atkinson Academy, as pictured there. Lots of students use it to get to and from where they're going, and when parents are dropping kids off, kids will often use this walkway. So my specific plans is to clear 5 to 10 feet of brush, low-lying plants, and dead trees on the left side of the path, and clear the majority of shrubs and brush to the right of the path and replace that with ground-cover plants as those mentioned there, and that would cost about $20 to $30 to do. We'd also want to remove some poison ivy that's been growing up on the left side of the path, and if there are regulations against using chemicals, then we can always just remove them by hand with gloves on, so the volunteers are protected. Another thing we'd be doing is remulching the areas shown in the front of the picture, in front of the rocks, there to the left and right. We'd also be doing the same to the back left and back right corners at the top of the walkway. We'd also be lining the edges of the path with flush paver stones that will sink into the ground. I looked into the root systems. That was brought up as a possible concern, but after doing some digging next to the trees closest to the path, I don't think that will be an issue as long as our pavers are below 2 inches in height. I also plan to add 3 weatherproof signs on different types of trees to describe those trees so students can read about them, learn about them a little bit. Another item is adding 7 birdhouses to the remaining trees on the path. We'd use a variety of birdhouses to attract different kinds of birds. That would be about $15 to $20 each. And in order to maintain the tree's health in the project, we'd be using only small nails to hang the signs in the birdhouses, or we might be wrapping rope around to keep the birdhouses hung up. So funding, this is going to come at no cost to the school or the district. All funds and materials that I'm going to be getting will be through either direct donation of the item, donation of money from organizations, or a fundraiser I would host over the summer, which would more likely than not be a car wash. And about the total cost would be $400, and some of that would be donated, so the cost could be significantly lower or just a little bit lower. An additional cost for clearing supplies would be about $20, I predict. So some other important things to mention: if all goes as planned, the service project will be completed over the summer before school begins, and I must receive this board's approval in order to proceed with my project under our scouting district rules. I'd go to the Eagle Board in July, where they would then further approve my project, and I can begin work on it after I have your approval. And the work would be done by scouts in my troop, friends and volunteers from honor societies, my family, all sorts of the like. And the only time that certain people could not work is heavy machinery such as a chainsaw that we might need in this project for dead trees. We would have to have an adult do that according to Guide to Safe Scouting as stated there. And it's my project. I'll be supervising all project activities because it's also a leadership project under the Boy Scouts of America. And some additional photos that I'm going to explain. In the top left there, you can kind of see the relation of the path to the school. That's where parents pick up and drop off their kids in the morning and the afternoon. And the next photo is from the bottom of the path, showing kind of the right side where I'd replace a lot of the ground current low-lying plants with ground cover. And the next 3 photos, the top right, bottom left, and middle bottom, are all from the top. And the bottom right 2 are highlighting kind of an area where there's been dumping of like grass clippings and other stuff that I want to try and beautify that. That's kind of an eyesore for the area, so we'd use mulch there as well. And that's about it. Thank you for your consideration. If you have any questions, go ahead.
Kim?
In regards to planting ground cover, and you've got myrtles or pachysandras, are those native species?
I'm not aware, but I can check in on that for you to be sure.
Let me just, there's a project over in Kingston called Pollinator Pathways, and a lot of times ornamental plants look nice, but if they're not native, pollinators don't come to them, and we're trying to attract more bees. So my suggestion, Atkinson has a great garden club, do they not? Would be maybe to talk to those people and get their suggestions as to how to plant this so that it doesn't have to be maintained, but it has the sort of vegetation that would promote both insects and the birds that you're hoping to get nest there.
Okay, thank you.
Good idea. Anybody else?
I'd like to make a motion to accept this project.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Further questions? Not, oh, Brian?
Just comment. Good night for Atkinson.
Yeah.
I think this is good. Keep up the good work.
Okay. Call the question. Favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, Kyle.
Usually Sue Sherman, makes the statement, and so if I may, right?
You can make it for me, I'm not allowed to talk.
We have our commitment, obviously, to take care of these projects. But I have to say, coming here from somewhere else, very much like our all-state wrestlers and our all-state musicians, our Eagle Scouts, we have an unusual amount of these students here compared to other districts. It's really incredible. The contributions that you make, you and Joe and all the other Eagle Scouts, are really, truly remarkable. Schools are lucky to have one. We have 4, 5, and 6 every single year. So we thank you, and you got Mr. Geary. We'll do a good job helping you out with these, and you have our word that we'll make sure that we maintain them and keep them looking great for many years to come. So thank you. Thanks, Sean.
And I second all that. And it's not just here at the school level. It's nice to see it here as well, but at the local town levels and stuff too. There's different, Eagle Scouts have done multiple projects around in my town of Danville. They've done multiple things. It's all great projects, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
All right, Kyle, back to the table.
Okay, treasurer appointment. So we've had an opening pretty much for a Timberlane treasurer for many months now, and
Sean, do you want Jeff?
oh yeah,
Jeff? All right.
okay. So we wanted to bring we had this one that been sitting out, and then apparently we've got another one, I believe, that you forwarded.
Yeah, that came in last week.
On the back page of the second one, it says the objective is SAU Assistant Treasurer. This is not-
We have verified that that was a mistake. It is for the Timberlane position.
Well,
So it came from an individual who didn't understand Timberlane, Hampstead, SAU 55, the three entity piece, and their interest is in the Timberlane, and I believe the letter speaks to the Timberlane component. I just wanted, just to let you know that it was, we did verify that when we received it.
Does Timberlane has both positions open now? Both positions, okay.
That would be what, the assistant and
Yes.
the treasurer and the assistant treasurer.
Correct?
Correct, yep.
I'll make a motion to approve Kathy Beatty as the treasurer and is Gloria Dodge as the assistant?
I'll second.
Okay.
I was just very confused on the letter myself, too.
It's confusing.
I thought it was at the wrong meeting.
Brian?
Just for discussion purposes, I personally know Gloria Dodge and can vouch for her background and expertise and what she's done for the town of Atkinson, and she'd be a good pickup, that's for sure.
And likewise for Kathy Beatty for
Yeah,
Danville.
so I don't, yeah, so this is good.
Sue?
And I can speak the same thing about Gloria. I've known her for a very long time. She'd be a great pickup. You know, she'd help us any way she can with our finances. So, would you be willing, Sean, when we had our treasurer and assistant last year, the chair of the board met with both people and introduced them to the staff, and I don't know if you have time to do that, but it was kind of a welcoming to the position. Kim wasn't available, but we had decided we'd been the committee to find a treasurer, and so we welcomed them, but I don't know if you want to do that again, but these would be two great pickups for the community, from the community to the school district.
Sure, I would do that. Okay. Any further comments?
If I may, Mr. Chairman? We have an interim treasurer that was appointed by this board, Linda Coyle, who I'd like to recognize of Atkinson for doing a phenomenal job in that role, been very, very diligent. She will not be available for the week upcoming, so that any appointment is very timely, let me put it that way. However, as interim treasurer, it would be helpful for her to stay on until 6:30, until the end of our year. So
Yeah,
we
no,
can-
I would totally agree
Yeah.
with that. It was basically, in my viewpoint, it was sort of, the perfect storm, if you want to look at it that way. We're coming right now to the end of the fiscal year. I would actually recommend that the current treasurer, assistant treasurer configuration work to close the books on the 6/31 date, and then the new treasurer and the assistant treasurer would take from there, going 7/1 and moving forward.
Where our existing treasurer won't be available to sign checks next week, and it's going to be a very busy week, it would be good for those appointments for treasurer and assistant treasurer to become effective immediately, while still maintaining the interim treasurer. Because I believe that's the capacity that Linda was reappointed by this board as interim treasurer, maintaining that until the end of the year. So we can have the assistant, the treasurer, assistant treasurer, and then you can have Linda continue to serve until the end of the year as well. And it might be a nice, there might be an ability to transition from a process perspective between them that way as well.
I don't claim to be an expert on internal controls, so I didn't know if there was anything that we could do. I know we've had internal controls issues and audits in the past. If there was anything that we could do so that we don't have issues moving forward. I know we have internal controls that have been improved.
That's correct, yeah.
Some sort of, if this creates any sort of issue with internal controls at all, and if not, if there's some disclaimer or something so that in audits to come, we're not cited for having an internal controls issue that we may be able to disclose up front, or I don't know what we have to do so that we don't have to read about it in an audit a year from now.
And I believe and I believe the proposed treasurer is serving as Danville's treasurer.
Correct.
And Danville is a contributor to the district. The role of treasurer is to account for both the receipts and disbursements of the district.
Mhm.
When you have one person on both ends, it isn't probably the most sound, the best internal control. I believe that we probably have internal controls, and I would imagine Danville would have internal controls around that as well.
Yeah,
To be able to.
it's basically the whole warrant signing process is that when we issue payments to the school district, and the
Right.
warrant is created, I as a selectman in the town of Danville would be one of the people that would sign that.
Mhm.
Then the treasurer takes that warrant, when they have a majority of the board that signs that, then the check would be signed for that. Then it would be sent to the school district, and then the school district with its own internal controls would take care of that depositing of those funds.
I think.
So, recommendation, just on the Danville piece, because it's coming from 4 towns, would it make sense to have the assistant just verify that deposit or something? I mean, is that something?
We can put in a special controls if we see that there's a need to. And I don't think anybody's gonna object to having it more checks and balances.
Well, we could just let the two of them figure out what's the best way to do it, right? Okay.
Tim?
I'm a little confused here because as I rethink the audit, as I have read it, I don't think the internal controls issues had anything to do with the treasurer. It was having another set of eyes look at the documentation, was it not?
My understanding, it was an entire process.
It's an entire process. And I think as a general proposition, I would be remiss, I think the superintendent would be remiss to bring up the fact that it is unusual. I don't know that it can't work. It certainly can work. I think the bigger priority is the candidate qualified? Both seem very qualified. And if it were to come up as a note in the future, as long as this board is aware that would come up or could come up as a note in the future, I don't think it would probably not be a finding, but it may be noted in future audit reports.
Yeah, it's not here.
That's all.
Well, I talked to Mike Campo just about another matter a couple weeks ago, and he was aware, probably from conversations from somebody, and it's really not an issue. He was not concerned, put it that way.
Yeah.
If I could?
I
had the same conversation with him, and he said, if you can't find anybody else, we're not concerned. He said, if that's your only candidate, that's the best you can do. I just want to clarify my previous statement. When I said the two of them work it out, I mean the treasurer and assistant treasurer. Whatever they think is the best way to do their internal controls, I'm sure they'll figure, and we'll be fine.
Good.
Just, all right?
Should be good.
I wasn't,
We're good.
Sue?
I think it's worth having the record show that we're well aware that Mrs. Beatty is the treasurer of Danville. And that's not, nobody's trying to keep that a secret. And that Mrs. Dodge has been the tax collector over in Atkinson, that they've handled money, that they've handled district funds, and they're willing to step up and help us. Again, another set of eyes, and we're well aware of that. So I'd like the record to show that we are aware of. I don't see any potential conflicts at all. And we've been very transparent about that, and so is Mrs. Beatty and Mrs. Dodge.
I think, Timberlane's, we're fortunate, because we got two really good people that have stepped up that have a tremendous amount of experience, so we're lucky. So that's good.
And I think the bottom line is we have set a bar, I think, on qualification for that position. And both candidates seem well qualified.
Okay.
And that's a priority, I think, at this point.
So just to address your issue, Jeff, so the the current assistant treasurer is not going to be available next week to sign the check registry. So for all intents and purposes, I would say check signing would be, they're done with it. They wouldn't be signing any more warrants that would come up, because if the next one's coming up that they're going to be missing, they wouldn't.
We have payroll next week.
Yeah. So, yeah, these would have to get on ASAP
And that can be done.
okay.
Was your recommendation to keep the other person on to 6:30 to help close the books on 6:30?
Correct.
Was that? oh.
Yeah. No, I would definitely want them to close the books on 6:30. They tidy it up with their statements, financials for June, and then the new treasurer and assistant treasurer would be responsible for 7/1 moving forward.
Would you, I assume your motion doesn't entail touching that interim treasurer position at all. Would it be better just to wait until Linda is done with her work and sends in a note, noting her completion and resignation? Or would you want to set a time frame on that for
I
current treasurer?
believe that the way it was always.
6:30.
6:30?
6:30. But you're going to need somebody to sign checks before then, so the
I will,
question
yep.
is that if they're not appointed by this board until 7/1, they're
Doesn't-
not signing checks.
not helpful,
in
yeah.
June. So that's the dilemma I'm trying to get over.
Yeah.
Well, we just appoint them immediately, understanding that there are certain actions that have to be taken before they can actually sign the register, correct?
It doesn't take that long.
Well, especially since they're probably both already bonded.
Well, these,
Both are.
yeah, these checks are fine. It's more next week, and I can onboard them with our
So I just
bank
meant
quickly.
append my motion to make it effective immediately. That doesn't necessarily mean that the
Right.
current treasurer can't stay involved,
So-
because there's always there should be an overlap between treasurers.
We'll have 3 for 10 days.
Great.
One for a year, this is great.
Okay, we all set? If not, I'm going to call the question.
Please.
All those in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Unanimous?
Okay. And you're going to meet with them at some point, but that's not, they're ready to go tomorrow.
Okay.
You can meet with them when you have time.
Okay. Next one, data governance plan.
Good evening.
How you doing, Ken?
So I'm here tonight for the second reading of the data governance plan. If you recall, a couple weeks ago, I did a presentation on the purpose of the plan, why we are presenting it to you. It's the law. And provided an overview of the basic points of what the plan provides. I didn't receive any questions, but of course I'll answer any tonight. And I am going to ask that if the board could see it in their, to approve this plan tonight. It is due by June 30th. So I know, as we talked about last time, the standards and the policies around this were not provided by the state until April. So we've only had them for a few weeks. So every district in the state is scrambling to get these approved. There's also a policy, which is, I think it's EHAB,
EHAB.
which
in your
is the
packet tonight.
policy for the data governance plan, which just basically says we're going to follow the plan. So I appreciate you fast-tracking that, and I think that's being hopefully approved tonight as well. So I'll entertain any questions, of course. And if you don't have any questions, that's fine, too.
Okay. Go start down there soon, go right around the room.
So are we looking to adopt, accept, there's different language here. Adopt the data governance plan,
I believe that's the intention.
accept the plan.
Yeah,
What's the
adopt. I mean, it's not a
language we need?
policy, it's a plan, so I
Plan.
don't know if the wording is different because of that.
Accept the plan, I think is,
I think
I
either
just
or
was
is probably
asking about
fine.
Yeah.
what the wordage should be.
I think it would be adopt.
Adopt,
There's usually, like an emergency response plan, you adopt that plan. I think it's adopt.
I would probably agree with that. Lee?
3 questions for you, Ken. Under the regulatory compliance, it mentions PCI compliance. Are we retaining credit cards?
We are, that might be a better question for Mr. Dow, but I do not believe we are. We use, I know, like, one of the vendors we use is My School Bucks, but they do all the processing with us, and they're PCI compliant.
Okay.
So I don't think we are doing anything around actually retaining and keeping credit card information. That's all outsourced, if you will.
How would this affect some of the vendors that we use with software that interact with the students?
Yep.
Would it be safe to say that when we accept, you know, a vendor's software and stuff, that they're going to agree that they adhere to, you know, our data governance policies.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, and
procedures, because there could be some big holes in
yeah, it's a lot of
their
work. and
side of
there's
the
a
fence
lot
that
of
we're not even aware of.
Right.
But
No, there's a lot of work to be done. That's really the lion's share of the work we need to do here, is to vet all the applications and websites that we use in the district.
no, because, I mean, this is an interesting topic, because there's a lot of different offshoots that you can go off on this. I mean, you know, our students are, you know, a data mining source to companies, and they want to get access
Sure,
to that
yep.
data. And, you know, let's just be honest about it. We know that they want to do it. So how do we do this in a controlled, agreed-upon environment that it's very transparent and it's not behind the scenes and
Sure.
doing
and,
it
you know,
in
we
an
talked
ad hoc
about
manner?
right. We talked about last time how we're joining that that state organization, which is going to help vet those applications and those websites for us, and for all the districts in the state. It's going to take some time to get up and running. They're
Totally
just
agree.
getting started right now, but that is really their sole purpose, is to provide us with a database of vetted resources that meet all the criteria: federal, state, and local policies.
Page 34 under Appendix L, password security. I didn't have a chance to research. Do we have a policy around password security? Or is it strictly going to be governed by the data governance plan?
It will be in the data governance. I believe it's part of the policy, EHAB. It might be in there. There is somewhere, Lee, where it does mention that, yes.
And then when you were here at the last meeting presenting, you talked about video training. Or there was a component to the plan that included videos.
Yes, that was around the data privacy and security for staff training.
Okay.
And we talked about how we're going to be using a platform that provides really specific video training for them to view these short videos, and then take a quick short assessment afterwards,
So
just to raise awareness around, you know, privacy, what to do, when not to do, with like emails, sharing of data, all that other stuff.
Is that going to be part of like a learning management system, an LMS?
Yeah, in essence, it is, yeah.
And is that something that we have in place today, or are we going to need to?
We are signed off on it. It will be in place for August. Yep. And all staff, we're going to basically assign to them these modules. We'll custom make the modules, or in some cases, they'll be pre-canned.
Yeah, do you have to develop the content, or
We
you just repurpose
we
it?
don't. It's a hybrid. So there is a lot of pre-canned material that we'll use, which is really great stuff. And then there's there's custom things we'll put in there as well that just pertain maybe to our district.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Sheila?
I was going to make a motion. Kim?
Just a couple of quick
She had a
questions.
question.
Yeah, that's what I said, Kim.
Back to page 34 on password, it says passwords are forced to be changed at least once per calendar year.
Correct.
Does that apply to both students and school
Does not
board
apply to
members
students
and
at this time. So in the future, I would like to, that's a tough thing, because think about a second, third grader changing their password. The management around that is going to be challenging. So I don't know if we're going to do it yearly for students. I'm talking to other districts, but as of right now, no, we don't expire them for students. We do for staff. So it's something we're going to work on.
And not for board members?
For board, to change your passwords?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would imagine we could do it yearly too, for that, sure.
Well, it's just that it says in the policy that you do it
Yeah.
yearly. I didn't know if this applied to those passwords too.
Yeah. Yes, they will. Like, we talked about this as
It will moving forward.
Yeah, well, we talked about this as a plan that's going to take a couple of years. I know it's not
put
where
in
we are
place.
today. This
To
is a
put in
roadmap
place.
of where we want to go.
Okay, so the other thing is on PII. Can we make sure that that definition that you have in here is consistent across the district? Because I know I've researched this before, and at different locations, it was not consistent across the district. And then the last thing is on policies. The school board is sending their policies to the New Hampshire School Board Association for review, and I know they're going through a lot of policies, so you might just want to make a note in 6 months you reference a lot of policies to make sure that they are not going to be in conflicting with what you have in here.
Sure, yeah. No, I know there's a lot of movement here, and there's going to be policies introduced and edited and changed. So, yeah, this is, like we talked about, this is a living document that's going to change, and we'll amend it, and, by law, we have to bring it to you, the board, once a year. So this would be a standing June presentation, I guess.
Okay. So first meeting in June.
First meeting in June.
So we
yep.
have 2 meetings if you want.
Yep, yeah, we'll do first meeting in June, yep.
All right. Shelley, you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept,
Adopt.
adopt, thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt the data governance manual as written.
Motion made and seconded.
Lee seconded.
Please.
Any further discussion? Not call for a vote. All those in favor?
I actually did read that thing, you know.
Thank you.
Good job, Ken.
I actually did read it.
Budget update. I thought we were going to get long-winded.
Mark, you want to let Jeff know that the budget update?
Thank you.
Well, good evening again. For those of you who don't know, I am Jeff Dowd, the District Business Administrator and CFO. In front of you, you should have an end-of-year projection fiscal year 18-19. May feel a little bit like deja vu. You saw this, or a report similar to this, last month. This is something that the Business Office, I think, has traditionally proposed, presented at this meeting on an annual basis. This year, I think you saw this a month ago, a little ahead of the game on that, and you were able to make some decisions, help administration to drive your goals in the district, and we're presenting it again because this does get presented at the last meeting, but I'm very pleased that you've already seen it and you saw it a month ago. We haven't had too many changes. We moved some money around at that meeting, and that's reflected in this report. So showing a projected surplus of $1,515,000 based on the factors that you see in front of you between expense and revenue. That assumes a level fund balance retention. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. But we did take a look at this a month earlier than usual, which I'm very pleased about.
Okay,
What is, can you explain the variance in revenue?
We've had some shortfalls, particularly in our Medicaid revenue lines, that at this point, I'm not 100% optimistic, and we're going to be meeting next week to discuss those. I'm not 100% optimistic that we are going to be at our budget target for Medicaid. And there are a number of factors behind it. We are lower. I think every district in the state is probably lower than we had been. We have some, until we're able to do a final true-up on tuitions, we're a little lower in some of those categories as well. In a lot of cases, that would be offset by a relief in expense as well. It's a good question, though.
Thank you. So tuition, you have a variance in the revenue on tuition?
A little bit. We have had money in the past come into the state. We're off just a little bit coming from other districts to our district. We're a little bit lower on that, and I think that's a primary driver on that. Some of our private music lesson tuition is down, but that also means that we're not paying out on the other end for the services.
Right.
And these are, Jeff, reflect all the new numbers after we've moved all, when we made all the decisions to expand Tom's summer projects with all the various
encumbrances and budget transfers and that sort of thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's important to note that on those, I believe it was an up to. So if we go out and get our pricing and it doesn't turn out to be the maximum, we may see some favorable variances there as well. So if you have any questions, again, I'm more than happy to entertain them, but you'll find the budget, the actual year-to-date revenue and expenditure report posted for the general public on the Budget Committee's site under financial reports. and I believe it's also posted to your site as well.
So, next month when we do this, the financials are posted again, that will pretty much be, it's gonna close the year, so at that point, you're gonna have a good snapshot of what the real numbers are, because
Right.
basically the year's done.
Right. Typically, we would post those into August when we're really able to wrap them up and hopefully have audited in, be able to take a look at what we have. And we've been able to get final numbers from them in years past. In August, that would be my goal this year. So we would have those numbers and we would be good.
Kim?
I'd like to get some sense of the variances in the salary lines as to whether these are positions that are unfilled because we have not been able to find somebody to fill them, or they're unfilled and we do not anticipate filling them. Because if that is the case, then they should be eliminated from the budget. So I'm not exactly sure. So what I would like to see is a list of anticipated, I guess, unfilled positions with a second column saying, are these needed or not, so that the board can make a decision in terms of eliminating unfilled positions that should not be in the budget and hence not in the default budget.
Okay. And this board, I believe, voted earlier in the year as well to eliminate some positions.
But those weren't.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yes, we did, but that was the last budget cycle.
Correct.
Well, I can get that detail for you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, sure. I'm guessing of this $1 million, I would think between you and the superintendent, I'm guessing probably half of that could be the difference between what was budgeted and what was filled. In other words, if you budget a position at 80,000 and the person gets hired at 44,000.
Yeah, there's salary savings, or some people refer to it as breakage.
Breakage,
So
yeah.
that contributes to some degree. I don't know the percentage. I would say, Christie's still working with the principals, filling those positions, so we'll have a better understanding probably into early fall about what additional money you would want to take out of next year's budget, like we did this year. We did that in the fall. Remember, you cut like X amount of positions.
Correct.
And we removed them. Some of these are like the open administrative positions that we didn't fill. There's a couple of different.
You mentioned in the fall, and that was the last budget cycle, but that would have been for next year's budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were positions that this board would have cut that weren't filled as part of this budget that we're looking at right now.
That's not a question.
Some we've been actively pursuing to try to fill, and some positions are harder than others to find, but, and we had that little safety net that I talked to you about in December of last year, which we left some positions open and then you took some positions, but, we'll be in a good position to come back again. I think that wasn't a bad time frame of looking at it in the fall about, okay, we're fully staffed, we're open, we're operating, everything looks good. These are the positions that are currently open for whatever reason, whether we couldn't fill them or whether we chose not to fill them. And then that's a decision at that point the board could make moving forward for the following year's budget.
Well, yes, but I think the board was quite surprised at the number of open positions that were suddenly advertised in December that we weren't aware were needed until December. So I think we're going to want to listen. I think, Sue, you're understanding what it is that I'm looking for.
I clearly understand what you want.
Can you
if-
explain what it is that I want? Because I think you're shaking your head that.
Yeah, what Jeff was answering wasn't in my
Okay.
humble opinion, wasn't the question she was asking, Dr. Farrar was asking. And giving what Brian is saying, well, I hate to use the word breakage, but adding that we probably got a good considerable amount of breakage here, we're looking for the number of positions we're talking about. Is it 6 special ed teachers? Is it 2 special ed teachers plus breakage?
Yeah, breakage and positions are different.
I know.
Breakage is just money, positions are positions.
Right, I get it. And you understand that, Kim, the breakage is
Yes.
different, yeah, you got it.
So I'm not looking at breakage. I'm looking at
Actual positions.
how many actual positions are we needed? Do we have in the high school for the fall? versus how many are in the budget for the fall, so that we can eliminate a position that is in the budget that is not filled or needed to be filled.
But needed to be filled.
Needed to, right, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not cutting any positions, I'm not cutting any people, I'm cutting unfilled positions that are not needed in the district so that they are not carried into the default budget, because by law they should not be.
Brian?
Well, I just want to point out that when I look at the total of $1.5 million, that's a pretty good number on approximately a $70 million operation. So we should always have some kind of surplus.
Well, actually, it's higher than that, isn't it?
It is.
Either way. You
Well,
should
I
always
know,
have
but
a
actually the
couple-
number is higher
You
than
you should never try to run an operation this size with,
I agree.
within a couple $100,000. So that's a pretty good number right there. So, I mean, the long and short, I think, is, I guess, what the board would like to see, maybe some backup about some of the big ticket items, and that's it. But I think it's,
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, and again, I don't have all the surplus in the way it's been generated in the past. I don't think salaries have been 2/3 of the surplus year after year after year after year after year. You know, different surpluses generated different ways.
Mhm.
You know, to still try to get to that 1.8, I think, was that what we were shooting for, 1.7, 1.8, I think was the
Right.
projected surplus when budgeting. So you get there a number of different ways, but we can get that information to you earlier in the year, as, you know, as we finish staffing throughout the summer and into the early fall. Not as late as December, but, you know, maybe as we open up school, this is what we opened up school with, and we're still looking for these 3, but we have 9 others, or I don't know what the numbers will be. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
Well, I do have one other thing. If you have a moment, I have an update on, speaking of budgets, on the PAC siding replacement. I believe, the
PAC.
Performing Arts
Oh, the
Center
back. Yeah,
siding
no, I was
replacement.
gonna, actually, that's good. I was gonna bring a nice segue into Brian and Tom, because I know they wanted to add some commentary here.
Excuse me. In your packet, you should have a worksheet in regards to the PAC siding project. Go over this. And I will walk you through. We had the bid opening last Tuesday. We had 2 qualified companies bid on the job. We have 1 preferred bid. So I'll walk you through option 1 first, okay? So option 1 is what I consider to be the original scope of work that was designed by Dennis Myers, the architects, and put out to bid by the contractor. So as you see, the project budget was $531,000. The preferable bid for that job came in at $482,649, and that would leave us a project balance / contingency of $48,351, which is 9%. As you see in the bold red, we would be prepared to sign a contract immediately with that preferred vendor, get the items ordered, and proceed with that work. However, as indicated in previous meetings by the board, there was a desire to explore masonry. And so what we did with the bid documents when we put out the architectural drawings, we called out a specific section of the building, the lower, I'd say 7 to 8 feet, and asked whoever bid on the project to deduct that from the metal siding and provide us a number. That leads us to option 2, okay? So you'll see, as again, project budget hasn't changed. You see the preferable bid is $362,649, and that is because the preferable bid that we received had a deduct of $120,000 for roughly 4,200 square feet of metal siding, and that would allow us to hire a masonry contractor and install masonry on that lower portion of the building. That would leave us, after we pay the extra $8,000 to the architectural firm to draw the details for the masonry, with a project balance and contingency of approximately $13,351, which is 2.5% of the budget. I walked Brian through some of these numbers just the other day. It is favorable. You see that we would have a masonry budget of about $147,000. I use $35 a square foot, which I feel is a responsible number for masonry, confirmed with a few contractors. However, I'll call your attention over to the right-hand column where a mason, any reputable mason right now is booked out through the summer. Not a surprise for me. And the soonest that most companies would become available is late November. So that portion of the building or portion of the project would have to begin in November. Other things come into play when we get into late November. That's when our winter's starting. So we'd be looking at, the reason why I carried $35 a square foot is to cover winter conditions in case any blanketing is needed, temporary heat, plastic and whatnot for the mortar to properly set. So we have a long-lasting project. So I have both options laid out for you. The right-hand column, you'll see the action I would need to get this project going. I should note that in option 2, we could mobilize the metal siding contractor over the summer to begin that project, and then come back to the masonry. All it would take is our architect to draw up the detail on how that ties together. So.
All right. As Tom mentioned, Tom and I sat down the other day, and I suggested that I didn't think you could have it tonight, to have the architect come up with some kind of a rendering to see exactly what this looks like. Because I believe that the masonry numbers have come in even more favorable than we thought they'd come in. And so I asked Tom to ask the architect just basically tie this thing and let's see what it looks like, because after we met, I drove by and looked in the front of the pack, and it's like there's 4 or 5 different colors and siding, and it'd be nice if someone to tie this all in so we can get a full visual. And my thoughts, I know that this metal clad product is an industry standard. I'm just old school, and I just would like to see as much masonry on that building as possible, because you're not going to wear out the masonry, that's for sure. So, and this is how this started, that we, as a board, chatted, and if we could, we had a warrant article here for the voters, which $531,000. So, if we could go into our cap, if we had to take a little more than a warrant article, it'd be a good solid investment, I think, for the PAC, and a better long-term solution for the community. So I don't want to correct you, Tom. So that's a version of option 2 that I'm pushing. It's not the exact option 2 as you have on here is exactly what you showed me. So
Right.
So you haven't had time yet to. My recollection is it's from the ground up about 8 feet, is what.
Yeah, give or take, it's about the door height of, if you were looking
So-
at the back of the Performing Arts Center.
So I was
that would carry
suggesting,
it up.
because when you start looking at the square footage numbers of the masonry versus the metal, they're pretty close. So if we can go higher with the masonry product, because there is already a footing on these exterior buildings, in the PAC, you have, you've got a footing, and then you've got some portions of the building that go in, then up again, which obviously that makes no sense. It would cost way too much money to try to, after the fact, try to make that a masonry type product. But my suggestion is to see if we can, A, max out the masonry, and B, what's it look like? Because we've seen some different renderings, but let's get a better feel for
I
what
do
this
echo
is.
that sentiment as well. The masonry is basically more than a lifetime. It's
Yeah.
going to outlive everybody that's in this room today.
Mhm.
And the thing that we're seeing is that, we're paying off this bond this coming year, and we got a whole bunch of stuff of maintenance. And I know we've talked about how we're going to address all that stuff, but, if you're going to go back to a bonding thing, to fix all these things, it's, is it every bond cycle of 20 years that we're going to have to do major renovations to address the same things over and over, and where we can put a little bit more into it and be a little bit wiser, we can, buy a product that's going to outlast and get off the cycle, so that maybe we can use those funds to address other issues that are in the district and stuff. So, yeah, I agree with your sentiment as well. Anybody else? Sarah?
I agree in the idea of using the masonry. My concerns are more related to the timing. In November, December, the pack is in heavy use, and this is in the back of the pack. Is that going to hinder access for middle school students, kids going in and out that back entrance while they're doing work?
Yes, that's the short answer. So,
Excellent.
it would. No, I mean, those are part of the logistics that we would have to
Yeah.
work out. I have talked to Tony at the Performing Arts Center to make him aware of that. It would be a challenge that we would have to look at and properly plan. We would likely have to use the front of the building for middle school, high school travel back and forth. Of course, our jobs are always going to be safe, right? Safety is going to be the number one priority. And the reason why I called out the 4,200 square feet too is that we could get the metal siding done over the summer, right? The majority of it, and then bring the mason in November. So it would be a limited scope. Also talking to a masonry contractor, that $35 a square foot is a responsible number to use, and the limit on the height for that number, what he was talking about was 10 feet before major staging gets involved. So that number may increase the higher we go, right? So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm arming you all with the facts as far as the pricing
And timing.
goes. Yeah,
But
and the timing.
But you can also address Sarah's concern. That's, you've got it at late November, but that doesn't mean, it might not even make sense to do it late November, depending on the weather conditions. That might become a spring type project. It's basically, it's warrant article funding, so I think,
You do not need to spend.
well, my main
money.
concern is to do it right. That's what that's why I came up with the masonry. I'd rather wait a few months and get.
That
get
money
a-
doesn't
get a
even
much
have
better
to be
product.
spent by the end of the fiscal year. That money is coming out of the capital reserve. So correct me if I'm wrong, there's no time limit on the spend.
The voters have
So-
already given their approval for this. It's a non-lapsing.
Yeah, I mean, I would just caution you that as, we wait, I mean, if we extend this past a year, I mean, we'd have to account for inflation and whatnot and contract prices going up, but.
I'm not for extending it, but I don't want to pay extra to have to be warming the masonry in December when we could do it in June and not have to impact students and things. That's all. And I'm in favor of what Brian's suggesting, and I don't know if that means you need to come back.
I think
Is you
that's
go
what
as high as possible with the masonry.
So,
If it looks correct, is the other issue.
so I guess, bringing this to you as the board, we have a preferable bid. Do we throw the bid out and
No.
hold?
No, because I think your bid, like we talked about the other day, your bid is really a square foot type bid. That's really you're talking about the top part of it, the metal cladding?
Yes, and in talking with the contractor who submitted that bid, he didn't just go on a square foot basis. He wanted because we have architectural drawings, so
Okay.
down to the inch when it comes to ordering material and whatnot. Those are true material prices. Those are true prices that includes the lift, the equipment, the labor, and any other mobilization costs that they have.
Well, I
So-
guess,
So I did clarify that. I know that was one question you had when we met, so.
yeah, so I guess my
that's a
suggestion is,
true
again, I
bid.
think it's even more important than to get the architect involved, just to firm this thing up, to see how we can maximize our height, what the transition point is, and I'm sure this can get done relatively quickly, and then we can address that in a couple of weeks, if he could do that, just in a couple of weeks, and show us a rendering, and then you get this guy tied up on the middle part of it.
Would that jeopardize this, if option one were to go through, would that jeopardize the work that is otherwise ready to go?
Well, I know that the bid that came in was a bid that was scheduled because we had it in the bid documents of when the anticipated start date and when the work would be, and that was for this summer. I mean, it would just take some negotiation and whatnot. to work with them.
And why wouldn't it still be for the summer? We're only talking a couple of weeks here.
Well, I'm thinking, after talking with the architect, he was thinking 3 to 4 weeks on designing of the masonry details. We have quite a few doors and windows that this tie into, with, the devil's always in the details when you're doing
I hear you.
cladding.
I think it's worth the investment.
And then if our metal siding contractor were to move forward with this, I don't know what his lead time is, but he would need to know what level of material it is that he's going to need to order to complete the project. And if it includes the bottom part, the bottom 8 to 10 feet.
Right. Well, what we did when we put out the documents for the bid was we included a deduct alternate of a certain square footage, right? So that's what he based his number on. Now we're going back to a contractor and we're asking him to deduct even more. So I might just have to, start the process, just go through the process again. If I can't come to terms with the contractor, because we don't have a signed contract with him yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
I'm for trying to
state the
move this
facts.
forward, so I'm thinking of, Brian, making a motion that the board is in agreement that we want to go with masonry as to the highest level possible, and to let Brian serve as the board's liaison to Tom to move things forward should we get the bid. So we're not being held up here for another board
Waiting
meeting.
for drawings.
Is everybody kind of like that? You want me to make that motion?
I got it.
Sure.
You got it?
I got a motion to the board agree to use masonry to the highest level possible and to appoint Brian Boyle as the board liaison.
Wow, this
for
is
the project.
I'll second that motion.
Now it's formal.
So if we do that,
Get it done.
at what point are we going to see it back? Because I'm hearing all this and it's all great. I wish we kind of had done it before, because now I feel like we're going backwards where we want to get this done for the summer when the kids weren't in school, the pack wouldn't be impacted. And now we're talking of, kind of going back to square one. So,
Yeah.
and my concern
Oh, and
is
just to stay for the record, it's not, I'm following the board directive and, board advice.
So,
To
I'm not-
explore this, so.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying,
I just
we're
needed to
just kind
state
of going
that
backwards
professionally.
again. And my concern is just becoming that number that we put out to voters for a certain, a certain reason, and making sure that we're going to stick with that. And it's, cost overruns or anything is all going to be, because this is a tight, we're looking at the contingency now, and we had a long discussion on contingency before, and making sure that we were going to have enough in there, and now we're down to 2.5%. So that's really very little, so, thank you. I just want to make sure that it's coming back to us. I'm all for Brian looking into this and moving this along and trying to keep the project going. And I hear what Jeff's saying about, now we have to go back to the person that originally put the bid in, and we don't know if their start dates, because they have other projects lined up. So now we're moving down the line. So I just want to make sure that this is all going to go along, or proper timeline, and we're going to see it back here.
Well,
to be able to make that final decision.
it sounds like, just from what I'm gathering from the conversation, is that we're potentially only looking at maybe increasing the masonry by about 2 feet up.
Couple like that, couple feet.
And that the people putting the siding in could start that project almost immediately.
You would hope so.
We're already at the point where the masonry, if they're talking November, I'm thinking spring. So I'm cognizant of the fact that the voters
They
have
can't-
want us to spend the money, and that
Right.
so I think we would spend a lot of the money on the top.
But
and
we
then we're
can't
just-
really do that until we know for sure what we're doing with the bottom. We can't start the top until we make a definite decision on the bottom, so.
So you're uncomfortable with just letting Brian work to,
I just.
you want to see it again?
I do. I think we need to see the numbers again and make sure it's all going to make sense and it's going to work. I'm not against doing the masonry. I think it makes sense, but
Yeah.
if the numbers aren't there and all of a sudden we don't have definitive numbers, is kind of my point.
His
Yeah,
numbers.
I agree, but I think the numbers might go a little lower. The more masonry you have, the lower the number's going to go. So I think you're thinking kind of in the reverse. That the more masonry you have, the lower we're saving money. So, and that's what we're looking at doing, is increasing masonry.
Well,
We're saving money,
This should go
but the
up.
overall project, adding in the masonry, the price of that, looking at the numbers here. When you look at the masonry proposal we have in front of us, right?
You're right. I see what you're saying.
So when you add in the masonry,
Yeah,
the number
you're
goes
right.
higher. I mean, we're going from a contingency of 48,000 without the masonry.
Yeah, you're right.
To a contingency
You're
of
right. I'm wrong.
13,000.
You win.
And that's what bothers me.
Okay.
Is it, thank you,
Yeah.
Earl. And, did you get it?
In the
These
conversation,
things that close anymore.
So.
Okay, I got it.
So
Yeah.
that's where,
I see
that's
what
where
you're
I'm,
saying.
the potential overruns and whatever, and I mean, again, we're now talking about putting this project into the spring. We don't know what
part of it, yeah.
materials and everything else is gonna cost in the spring. So that's all I'm saying is, yeah, you can do part of it, but if we say do part of it and all of a sudden the material costs and everything go up, and the cost overruns are there, now we've done part of the metal and
Right.
we've said, all right, we're gonna do masonry, and now suddenly we're at a point where maybe we've,
Lock yourself in.
yeah, we've locked ourselves into masonry at a higher cost that was not what we presented to the voters and what we were prepared to put forth when we first heard this project.
And you're in an overrun.
So that's my concern.
so, when you went to the voters, you came in at an estimate. That's what it was, 531,000. So this metal came in at 482, because that's all it was, an estimate. And when we were working the numbers, so I'm not really sure how this went down, because I believe these things were within 5% of each other, the per foot number. Because what happens is, the higher you go, there's setup, there's staging costs. So it's less expensive, I guess, the lower you are to the ground. Now, when I brought this to the board's attention, I think we as a board collectively thought it was a good idea to review the potential of masonry, and if it costs us some more money, whether it was, and I honestly thought it was going to be closer to 100,000. I didn't think it was going to be more like 20 to 25,000. To me, it's a no-brainer. So it's not like the price of masonry is going to triple 6 months from now. But I don't know what would drive that.
Sean, could I just ask a question about that? And Brian, or maybe Tom, you could probably help me with this, in terms of masonry. I was just listening to the whole project, right? And I was under the impression that we'd have to do the masonry first, because we'd have to flash before we put the metal on.
I can speak to, we're fortunate with this siding product that's specified, where this siding actually starts from the roof and works its way down versus bottom up. So if we were to separate these two jobs, I've talked to the architect and the contractor about coming up with a flashing detail where the siding contractor could walk away, feel comfortable, and then have the mason come in afterwards.
Because you know where I'm going with this,
Yeah,
water gets behind.
the whole reason why we're doing
Crap.
this.
Yeah, I don't want to, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Just as long as that's been investigated.
yes, yeah.
Does that question make sense, Brian? I mean,
Oh, no, the question makes sense. Again, as I said to Tom a couple of days ago, I was pleasantly surprised at these members from the masonry side. I just, myself, would like to see exactly what it looks like. And I know a lot of people have been using this metal type siding. This didn't just come out, but I'm pretty confident, sure as I'm sitting here, that masonry has a much longer life.
No doubt.
Track record.
And a much better track record, especially in a public building when you're down at ground level.
you would ask for a drawing, right? And so it
Sure.
would look like, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And that's where part of the action comes in, is because we would have to extend the architectural scope, right, to do this. So that's where I have that $8,000 as a change order to the architects to begin the work and start drawing those details and provide renderings would definitely be a part of it. If you refer, what you can look at it for scale is the original presentations that I've made on the metal siding. If you look at the bottom portion, there's a section of gray. That would be the 4,200 square feet on the masonry.
Tom, will this
Sorry.
look similar to those pictures you showed me of the work that was in Atkinson, at the bottom of the
Yes.
recreation?
Yes. This would actually be,
But higher.
what we're talking about is what's called the ground face block, which is a cinder block type of material that's honed, polished, and it resembles granite. It's similar to what's on the front of the Performing Arts Center, to tie that all in.
That'll look really sharp.
It will.
Yeah.
Actually, get into the original scope of the pack, which was all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can mix the aggregates. There's plenty of colors to choose from. One of the manufacturers right in Sanford, Maine, you can choose the aggregate to take, the colors from the existing siding that's staying at the pack. Also, the metal siding too. You can choose your aggregates, so you have the color flex in it, so.
So, Kristen, you want this to come back? I guess that's what you're saying before? I'm not
Yeah,
a-
I'd want to see the,
You want to see that?
I
you're
just,
more
I
concerned
wasn't
about
here,
the-
I guess, when this second discussion happened, so and maybe that's why I'm a little behind trying to catch up with this, but, this is an off-the-wall comment, but I'm not really as concerned about the back. I'm looking at a $35,000 difference in a fact that we're getting close to, and I understand the masonry over time, but how many feet are we talking about?
Masonry?
Vertical
Yeah.
feet, roughly 7 to 8 feet. So at max, you'd probably be adding a foot or two, maybe 3 around the building, is what we're talking about expanding it to.
And it's only in the back.
Correct.
And the side,
And then
too,
I
I
think
think.
also it's
Other
important
side.
to note that we want the architect to take a good look to make sure it's all to scale and looks nice at the end.
Right.
Right.
There you go.
So, because maybe a couple feet may throw the scale off and it doesn't look right, right? So,
That's why I want.
those are the things we should shake out.
Well, right, that's why, I guess, yeah, I'd want to see it. We're talking a change here, and where we're going financially and what we had presented, so.
Well, I don't know when we meet next.
Well, that's one of the worries I have is putting the project at risk, because if we push this out too long, I don't want to be next summer, come to you and say that this responsible bidder has increased his price by 3 to 5%.
Right.
So,
Well, we would be well aware of all that stuff and take responsibility for it, we would.
When do you think we can have drawings?
3 to 4 weeks was the completion. I will work and drive the architectural firm the hardest I can to be able to get some sort of rendering, because sometimes that's quicker to produce, right, than it is to draw the details of all the flashings and the window details
Exactly.
and the door details.
Yeah, we're not really.
And
Yeah, we don't
I'm not
need all
sure
the
when the
details.
next meeting is,
I don't know either.
be able to get a resolution, but I'd like to get
August
under
23rd.
contract with somebody to start some of the work.
22nd.
Do you need a meeting?
Brings us into another topic is when do we want to meet again? So,
Do you need to meet on this, or is it something you want to put together and then circulate out?
It's not like you'd be taking action if we shared it with you. If we got it and we got it to you, you don't have to take action on it. The chair could direct the liaison to make the work after
Right.
you had a chance to look at it.
Brian built a nice house.
Are you
Stuff.
comfortable with
Try.
that? That's not like a vote online or anything, that's just
Stuff,
sharing
so.
information and then you directing the
Would
liaison.
you be okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can outvote me anyway, so it doesn't matter, so.
I'm going to achieve consensus here.
Does that fall within the scope of like the board? Like, share the.
I'm okay, whatever you guys want to do. I mean, if you guys want me to, we'll send it on out and I can solicit everybody's feedback and then make a decision out of that feedback and direct it to move forward.
Seems reasonable.
Mr. Chair, if it may, I'm perfectly capable of working with Mr. Boyle to come with a solution, if that makes you, feel better. I think we can sit down and come up with a nice project to get this thing going.
I think you.
That's
even-
my priority, is to get this job started.
You may even have a motion on the floor to that effect.
Well, we have a unique opportunity here. I don't think we should miss
I agree.
to make it a better project.
I agree, I don't think we need to spend the extra money on having masonry done in the dead of winter, though. That's my only
As long as
comment.
it's not gonna cause a problem. by
As
having
long
the
as it's
building
not gonna
sit
cause
over
a
the winter
problem.
without
Right,
that portion
exactly.
being done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a
You
good
don't need
point.
a bigger problem.
What I want to do is that we have to make sure that the details that we were talking about, where we would have the siding contractor install a temporary flashing for the masonry contractor to come in, we want to make sure that's permanent, that'll last the winter.
I think it's also important for this board to acknowledge and for the general public to know that if that project were to begin with that masonry up front, that they're going to be done at some point, and the general public says, gee, we funded this, geez, it's not finished, and it may be unfinished for a while. And as long as there's an understanding as to why that is, and it's clear, and we're making that clear that this is going to be done well, it's going to take a little longer, but it'll be done well and be a good expenditure of our taxpayer funds. It's important, I think, for that to be communicated out.
So I think
You
we
want to
have a,
remove, I'll remove my second.
no, I think we're all set with that motion. I think everybody's agreed that we're gonna let
Brian's
Brian
gonna be
serve
the
as the
liaison.
liaison, and he will send to Sean, who will then distribute it to the board, what this is gonna look like, so if the board can come back into play on it, should they need to, but not having a meeting and having to make a motion and hold the process up.
Okay, super. Brian, in agreement?
Technically, it's sound.
All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Good, so Tom, tell the guy we need it next week.
I just have one question, so, I mean, just so I capture the spirit of, so we're looking at option 2. Just so I can be specific, so option 2 is presented here, and we're trying to get as much masonry as possible, so. The way
it will last
I can
longer, so
start
we're not
negotiating
making-
with the contractor for the siding and at least get some preliminary plans going with him. So they know what they're actually in for, so.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, our next one is federal funding authorization.
That's the language we're looking for, a suggested motion to authorize the superintendent and his designee to continue, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Each year, the board must authorize the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and business administrator to apply for and receive on behalf of the district, federal and state grants funding. Sample motion is to authorize myself and Mr. Dowd to apply for and receive on behalf of the district, federal, and state grants and funding, and to file such authorization with the New Hampshire Department of Education.
I'll make that motion as written.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded.
It's in the long agenda.
Yes, I see it.
Without
Yeah,
glasses,
yeah.
when I
Well,
see it.
Brian's laughing at me. I don't think he saw where it
I
was.
see it, I'm reading
So
it.
you got it?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion or any discussion period? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous?
The next one is suspension authorization. So annually, the board gives the superintendent or designee the authority to suspend students beyond 10 days. That's outlined in RSA 193:13. I can tell you in my 7+ years, I don't believe I've exercised, I don't think we've suspended anybody beyond 10 days, but it gives us the opportunity to do so if we need to. A lot of times, serious offenses require consequences, but they also maybe require some sort of therapy. So sometimes, it's get them the help and they need the consequences. But I need your authorization to do that beyond 10 days. The person at the site, the principal, assistant principal, can only suspend up to 10 days. The same person can't extend it beyond 10 days. This is the way the law is written.
Okay. So we're looking for a motion for that one as well.
I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent and his designee to continue the suspension of a student for a period in excess of 10 school days as provided for in RSA 193:13B.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you. Jen's not here. Lee, are you handling the policies?
I am, yep. You all ready on these? I'm gonna actually skip down to 6, because that's EHAB, Data Governance and Security, and it's being recommended for first read, but I believe we decided at last meeting we're gonna move it forward for acceptance this evening. So, are you okay with that, Sean?
Yep.
So, EHAB is the Data Governance and Security Policy. We need to have this implemented and adopted by June 30th. As I said, we moved it forward last meeting, so I'm going to make a motion that we adopt EHAB
A second.
For the second read.
for the second read.
Okay, motion has been made. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Sheila. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the, I'm sorry, did you have anything?
Nope.
No, okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous, minus Brian.
All right, the other 9 policies that are before us for first read, I'll just give a highlight of each one very briefly. ADAA, is the mission statement that is being recommended for repeal by the policy committee and the SLT. It's not a required policy, it's in the handbook, so there's really no need to have a policy on when we don't need one, it just adds more work. BBBA, board member qualifications, we're moving that forward for reaffirmation. BBBC, board member resignation, we added.
Sorry, can I just ask you, there's a comment in here that said, school board specific policy to be considered for repeal at request of board member. What is this talking
Yeah,
about?
so there had been a request to repeal it because it's not a required policy. And then at our last policy committee meeting, we discussed it. And this keeps things tidy in that board member qualifications are defined in RSAs.
Yeah.
But the RSA can be very convoluted because there's not a direct reference. And you almost kind of get in a cyclical reference when you're looking at the RSA. So this is taking the language out of the RSA and placing it into a policy. It keeps things tidier.
But it doesn't change the language of the RSA?
It does not change the language of the RSA.
I don't really understand why it makes it tidier then, if it's not changing the language.
It's a consolidation. So, for example, if you go to that.
This is from several different, you're consolidating several RSAs.
Correct. And legal references, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if you see at the bottom, it usually
RSAs.
has different legal references.
No, these are both RSAs on qualifications and resignation, but yes.
Okay. Because you have a bunch of them that say the same thing. So that's why I'm
Exactly, yeah.
wondering. Okay.
So there was 2 policy meetings ago, there was discussion around repealing them. And then this last policy meeting, giving it further thought, we felt it just was appropriate. BBBC, board member resignation, slight modifications there, and that was adding reference to a legal designee in case of incapacitation. So if a board member became ill and incapacitated, non-responsive, there was some alternative there. BBBD, board member removal from office, slight revisions there, adding the language for the petition of the court. BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment, same as BBBD. JFAB, admission of tuition and non-residents.
Hang on.
Yep.
BBVE.
Yes.
Vacancies on the cooperative school board? It's saying it's vacancies on the cooperative school board? Or we're not a cooperative school board.
You are a cooperative school.
I thought it was isn't a regional versus a cooperative? Okay.
Cooperative school
Fine.
district.
Yeah. I guess I thought it was regional versus.
You are a
Thank you.
cooperative school district, yes.
Okay.
JFAB, admission of tuition and non-resident students. This was updated to add specific legal reference, and that's in the policy. You'll see that when you read it.
Wait, hang on, Sue has a question, sorry, Lee, but I know you can't see her.
Question.
Can we go back to those 2, 3, 4, and 5 again, Lee?
Yep.
And just question, those are all New Hampshire School Boards Association recommended policies to have in our books?
That I don't believe. I know that they're.
You don't know, or you don't?
Yeah, I don't believe that they recommend those. They did give us an update. They are reviewing them. They were due back today.
Oh, good.
We haven't seen them yet, but I don't believe those are recommended policies.
I think that they are recommended policies, but they may not be priority policies. So they have 3 categories. They have optional, recommended, and priority. I think these are recommended. This is the language from the New Hampshire School Board Association.
Thank you.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm not certain. All right, JI, legal language was added to that. That's going to align with NHSBA. JIA, student due process rights, again, adding legal reference to align with NHSBA. And JLDBA, behavior management and intervention, there was specific language 504 plans added.
We don't have
We don't have
JIA.
JIA. It's not in the packet. We
Did I
have
miss
JI
it?
twice. We don't have
No.
JIA.
That would be my mistake. I apologize. You're right, you have 2 JIs and you're missing a JIA. You can strike that one. for the next time around
We'll
then.
take that one off and you can put it on.
Do we want to take it off? It's up, it's posted on the SharePoint site.
You want to
Yeah.
make a copy and bring copies down and give them the other day?
You want to-
Whatever the desire is of the board.
Put
We can
SharePoint
get
on.
printouts tonight, or we can
Did-
look them up on the
did no one
SharePoint.
got a
First read.
JIA,
This is first
right?
read,
So,
right?
as long as it's for first read.
As long as the first read, then I would agree.
See a copy when we do second read. And they're on the share site, so.
I'll send the JIA there.
Yeah.
Can you email us?
I can email you, yeah.
we'll
Just
send it out.
email
a
JIA, it means only first read, so.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I
a third time.
apologize, I missed that one.
I'll make a motion to accept these as a first read.
Second.
Motion made
I think.
by Kim, seconded by Kristen.
Sue?
Any further discussion?
Yeah, my discussion would be, I'm fascinatedly waiting with bated breath to hear what New Hampshire School Boards Association has done the review. That has taken a long time. It's a huge job for them to do with a very small staff up there. What they have to say about 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm fascinated about that. I think they recommend that to be a policy, that everybody have those in their book, that we not take it out, so. That's my comment.
Okay, if we're all done, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Okay. Policies?
Yep.
Okay. I think we'd be remiss to not, thank the SLT members and certainly the board members for the season they had on the policies. They got through quite a few policies. They
Very good
did a
job.
lot of great work. So we obviously put together a really good team of people. So congratulations, Lee, and to Jen, and to obviously the people. There's a lot of good work here.
No, there was.
So thanks.
Very good work.
Administrator's report?
Move on.
I have, any one of these issues could take some time to talk about. So I'll start with the, in your packets, I believe, you have a letter from First Student, or you have a letter from First Student, that they don't have what you asked them to have done in terms of the combined stops, with a brief explanation as to why they didn't get it done. So, I don't
What is the
have any.
rationale? I didn't see that yet.
I don't have any answers to your questions. Tom's still here. I don't know how much of a conversation, other than this letter that they sent, indicating that they don't have the combined routes done. And that's from Mr. Fairweather. If you have questions, I can ask for Tom.
I don't have any question. I think we just,
So is this, again, all the routes that we're reconnoitering, or just those hybrid routes? We never took off the table that we were gonna put all the high school and all the middle school kids together.
I believe that's what First Students.
that's what we asked them to do.
That's what they're doing
This is
here.
what they're
So this-
still doing.
They're still doing this.
The other routes are done, because Sandy
Those are
took care of
done,
that.
okay.
Sandy's
So I was
doing
wondering,
that.
why would it take them so long to do the hybrid routes? Those are all done. Now you're doing all the routes.
well, I don't know as the hybrid routes are all done, because the
they're being
last.
done
No,
in-house.
she's still
yeah.
working on
Oh,
that, but
she's working-
they will be done and ready for the opening of school. That's the timeframe. You gave the directive to get that done, so she's doing
Right,
that.
so
was
those
a-
aren't done.
This was a second directive to the company to give us, to combine
we're
all the routes
still-
to see what it looks
right.
like.
So
They
we're
should be
still
looking at-
sticking with this plan, to combine all the routes.
No, we're not.
Doing the hybrid.
Not for this year, but they wanted to see it.
Right, for future
Right.
consideration.
You
Well, because I
never-
think it's informative
never
of,
took 'em off?
even for the hybrid routes, to see what this looks like from a,
Yeah,
We
'cause,
never
I mean,
rescind, did we rescind that other directive? I have asked this like 3 times.
yes, we,
Well, there was a
I think you
motion.
missed the last meet, did you miss the last meeting?
No,
No,
she was there.
I've been at every meeting, but,
So, yeah, we said to go with the hybrid routes for next year,
Right.
because we were,
Sandy
No, we
was,
didn't rescind it, but they remotioned a different action.
yeah.
we motioned a different action, but did not rescind the original
Right.
motion.
So it, right.
So our
this-
public understands that we've rescinded and, no, we've
For-
remotioned.
for the fall, there's going to be a hybrid that's done by Sandy. That's, the board came to that decision,
Period.
period.
Okay.
Now with First Student, using the same data set for the fall, they're gonna look at it as a combined and see what that is. at least for me, I think what we're gonna do is get some insight into that, and that can hopefully be interjected into Sandy's data to modify hers for a subsequent update later on that could potentially save the students even more time. It's going through the task, learning from that, and observing what happened, just like we were able to have that hybrid because of some of the stuff that they did originally, and saying, hey, if you just moved this person and did something, that hybrid model was born. And that's the kind of stuff that I think that we want to get out of first student.
So it looks like they're not gonna be ready till the 12th of July, at the latest. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, because but this, what they're doing is only going to hopefully help inform Sandy of where she could further optimize the route. She's essentially doing this hybrid by saying, oh, I know I have one person over here that I could maybe do this and this would, but they're gonna, when they overlay both routes, she may see something, or they may be able to let her know. These two people over here, if you drew them into this bus, that would save them a lot of time in the bus route. So, it'd be the sooner we have this, the better. But if we get it later, it still can be used to modify routes in the future.
Okay.
You good?
Thank you.
On that? Okay. Second was a request, you asked for the administrative contracts with expiration date, and that's included. The most recent signing was a one-year contract at the direction of the chair with the new person in the 6-12 special ed position. So that has been successfully negotiated and executed. So we have him on board, but he's not on this sheet. That's Sean White. Sean White. So that would be his would say 6/30/2020. Okay. Last thing is this conversation, and I had an opportunity to speak with several board members about this over the last several weeks. Anyways, full day kindergarten status update. One of the things that takes a lot of my schedule during the day is in-district transfers, tuition agreements, full-day kindergarten requests. You get a chance to meet with a lot of families, and a lot of times, like today was a full day of in-district transfers and those such things. So I asked for this executive summary primarily so you get an idea what the real numbers are, because numbers are being floated out there that, and I rely on the principal's recommendation when they get to a certain place to say, I need another teacher. You know, we either try to repurpose a teacher and support the kindergarten program or come to you and ask for another teacher. If you look at the numbers there, you know, I think we're staffed appropriately. You know, the Atkinson Academy, we're at 26. I was hearing as many as 38. I call Kathy, or I have Kathy call Kathy and say, you know, we need another class, and you say, not so fast, we're only 6 over. So we try to do a variety of things to support some of those families, and sometimes that's great, sometimes not. You know, those include but are not limited to, perhaps you can have a seat at another location. Sometimes that's a great idea for them, sometimes not. Sometimes it's a combination of 2 halves to make a full. You know, I'm not sure, unless you direct me to, I wouldn't be coming to you to ask you for a second teacher at Atkinson to have 2 classes of 13. Those seem pretty small. Unfortunately, we have 6 families that are on the waiting list, and we have two at Pollard. As you see, if you look at the chart, you see the wait list. So this is where we're at right now. It doesn't mean that we won't get more over the summer. We really don't know in that regard, but this is pretty much, if you had specific questions, I mean, I could have Christie and company up here, but I don't know if this explains this enough. Brian?
I just have it's specific, but so these, well, specifically for Atkinson, as you say, there's been all kinds of numbers been kicked around that even I've heard about. So I guess my question is, when I see, according to this, there were 6 families currently on a wait list. Does that sound right?
That's correct. Yep.
So let's just
I
say,
haven't received all the contracts back saying that they're gonna pay. I have 11 outstanding still until Monday. But I have a plan for those 6 kids, 6 students, just like I did last year, and
Yeah.
it worked out perfect.
well, which I'm sure. So I guess my question, Kathy, is that if the 6 becomes 18,
Then I will
Be back.
ask Dr. Metzler for another teacher. If it
If
can't
we,
be
if,
18, then.
yeah.
yeah, what's the magic number? You know, how do we
I don't know what
break
I honestly
even?
don't know what the magic. I
Well,
don't know
you know,
what the magic
if we
number
got
is.
to 30, we'd be talking about a second teacher. two classes of
Sure.
15.
Okay.
Or 16, if we got to 32. And you see that's consistent. Danville's at 34. Pollard, sometimes, you luck out, like Sandown has 45, they have three classes of 15. So they have small, because they couldn't have two, you can't go over 20. We can't get to 22 and 23 in a class, in kindergarten class. So
Sure.
that's where it gets to be a little tricky in terms of staffing. Sheila?
Can I ask about one of these discussion? Discuss the option of registering their child for 2 half-day sessions at their home school. So if they can't get into full-time kindergarten, what you're saying is put them into morning and afternoon?
I had 4
And pick
this
up one in
past
the.
year, and there was, I guess you can say, some special ed students that had a lot of services, so they would have a lot of their services either in the morning or the afternoon.
Okay.
So.
But for, I don't like to say it this way, regular ed child,
Typical.
I'm sorry?
The typical.
Typical child, you wouldn't recommend that, correct? Because it's redundancy, wouldn't it be?
When we screen the children, we look at them.
No, but what I'm saying is, would it be redundant for a typical child? Because if they're going morning, then they go home for an hour, and then they go back in the afternoon.
A lot of the
Isn't
children
it
go
the
off to
same?
Holy Angels in the afternoon too, to an enrichment program, so.
I think the fair answer to that is.
I guess what I'm asking, is it the same curriculum being offered morning and afternoon?
No,
You
we
can go to Holy
differentiate.
Family, and it would be something different, possibly.
We differentiate for them if we.
That's what I'm asking, if.
It's situational, and you have to try to make it work for that particular family.
Logically,
it's not
it
an
just
accuracy.
didn't,
Yeah.
it didn't compute, because I'm like, why would you do the same morning and afternoon if it's,
Yeah, if it's for some people, the priority is that for them to be there all day.
Exactly.
And so.
Right.
They don't.
So that was a challenge for the schools when we first started looking at, okay, if we can't support a full day, can we do 2 halves? And then we started looking at particularly some students with disabilities that, wow, this may be a better plan than the traditional full day for different reasons. It gave us some flexibility. So, I rely on the principal's recommendations. They've been great at each site. They all do it a little bit differently to try to accommodate all families. And then, and we try to accommodate families in terms of, even though you live in one particular town, sometimes they want to go to a different town for a whole bunch of different reasons. And we meet with them and try to figure it out. Unfortunately, as you look at this list, right now we have 8 outliers kind of on a wait list, hoping something will change. Kathy has a plan for those 6, and I'm sure at Pollard, we'll have a plan for those 2, and we try to work that out. And then, in the event that somebody chooses not to take the full day slot, the slot's open, we can move people in, and then.
We don't know yet.
If we need an additional class, we'll have one. I did this year, I did hear from quite a few Atkinson families in support of adding a second class, and so I'm hoping that your enrollment goes up so that maybe we get to that point, but we'll see. We're just not there yet. But July and into August, that could change.
So it's basically, we're putting the cart before the horse, because these other 11 families are the ones that really are holding up
Exactly.
the whole show
And they
here,
have until
because if
Monday
they haven't
to-
come forward and committed to this, we, as a board and with
And
working
lots
with
of
Dr.
times they
Metzler.
decide at the very last minute, that's not gonna work for them. Who's gonna watch the kids during the vacation, there's a lot of things. So they choose
family
to stay at
logistics.
a daycare or a different kindergarten, so I don't know. It's kinda early to make that.
And sometimes, students need to repeat kindergarten, so they hold up a slot. That may be our decision, but then it's not they need to be in school, so there's not a tuition versus a parent request to want to do a second year. We try to work that out with them. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I'm just asking those families to just be a little patient with us and work directly with the principals, and we'll try to get them all accommodated so that everybody has a spot. And we'll watch that enrollment very carefully, and I'll keep you posted. If we get over 30, we'll be asking for another teacher. And that would be a teacher that may already be in the budget that would be repurposed. So it wouldn't be an additional teacher in the budget. It would be something you've already budgeted for, just not filled, a repurposed.
We need it.
Position change. Okay, does that help? Everybody else happy? Personnel report?
You want that?
In your packet, we have a resignation. Mike Flynn, our middle school principal, has done a great job. We appreciate everything he's done. We congratulate him. He's taken a promotion in another district. And we also have a science teacher at the high school, Kira Lacoste, so I'd be asking for a motion to accept those resignations.
Before we we move on that, I did talk to our legal counsel, because as you know, our admins are in 3-year contracts that we have. Had some discussion relative to that, and he had recommended that we just acknowledge the resignation. When somebody gives a resignation, it's basically them saying that they're going to leave. There's no rationale for this board to have to accept it or not accept it. I think we're just acknowledging that we received his notice and leave it at that, because there are potential some, in the contract, there is potential for this board to recuperate monetary damages if needed. And so I would take that and recommend to this board that we just acknowledge the resignation and keep it at that,
If I-
to leave all options available to this board
Could I
if
add to that,
warranted.
Paul? I mean, I'm sorry. Could I add to it? Just, I think it's true, too, about after you renominate people and we offer contracts and teachers sign the contracts, they're under contract as well, so it's not just the administrators, right? So
The
you-
teachers don't have 3-year contracts.
No,
The
but they'd have a
teachers
contract.
a yearly annual one, and I think that's where this whole process sort of got. Over the last couple of years, the contracts have been extended from the typical 1 year, which was, it wasn't typical, it was what they were, to these 3 years. And for what benefit? To the district, it was all beneficial to one side.
No, my point being is, after you renominate, we issue contracts, teachers sign contracts for next year's, they're under contract as well. So it's the same. You're letting somebody out of a contract that they're resigning from a contract that they signed with the district, whether it's for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or.
But somebody, the difference is a teacher is resigning. If this teacher is resigning now, they're at the end of their contract. They're not in the middle of a 3-year contract or in the first year of a 3-year contract.
I don't think you're following. After you renominate them in March, and we issue contracts, and they sign contracts, and they return the contracts, and then they resign this time of year, they're under contract for next school year. You're letting them out of a contract. It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yes, they're not at the end of it, they're at the beginning of it.
But I do not think that their contract has a stipulation that it needs 180 days written notice, does it?
No, I don't know collective
Okay,
bargaining
well,
agreement issues.
Mr. Richmond, could you answer, if a teacher signs a contract, do they then need 180 days written notice to the district prior to resigning from that contract?
My recollection is the stipulation is there's a date before which no board action is necessary. After that date, board action is necessary, that's all.
But there's no notification time period to the board? Thank you.
My recollection, but
Yeah, typically, on a collegial standpoint, it's typically superintendent to superintendent. You usually call and ask if somebody's under contract, is it okay? And we work that out amongst ourselves.
So,
But in this case, the superintendent was you on both sides of the fence.
When it's a promotion, it's pretty cut and dry.
So either way. So you spoke to,
Mr. O'Shaughnessy.
oh, okay, thank you. So I just say we follow his advice, so congratulate the person and follow Jim's language, that's
So-
all.
so
The motion would be is to acknowledge his.
Acknowledge it, and
we acknowledge his letter to the board that he is resigning, and that's it.
I think to Kim's point, though, I think I asked you to do them both because they're both under the resignation category. I think you're looking to separate them out.
I'm definitely
Yes.
looking to separate the two of them out.
So, want me to, I'll ask again, can we take the first one and say, I'm asking you to acknowledge the resignation of Mike Flynn?
I'll make a motion to acknowledge the resignation of Mike Flynn as the Timberlane Regional Middle School principal and wish him the best in his future endeavors.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Brian, seconded by Sheila.
just to be fair, is Mr. Flynn aware of the fact that he could be expected to remunerate back to the
think you're-
district because of the notice?
It's a theory.
I can speak for Mr. Flynn. Mr. Flynn's aware of everything that around this resignation and what it may or may not entail, and is prepared to do what he needs to do.
Okay.
I would like to expand on Brian's comment and thank Mr. Flynn for his years with the district, and it is with much regret that that we are seeing him leave. But I do wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors. So I just like that to be on the record. I just kind of want to expand it a little bit more.
Okey-doke.
Okay. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Thank you. Second one, I'd ask that Kira Lacoste, a science teacher at our high school, I'd ask that you would accept her resignation.
Move to accept the professional resignation of science teacher at the high school, Kara Lacrosse.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just 1 second. So was this the latter case that you were talking about, where this was a person asking to be released, so you spoke with another superintendent in another district?
I did not personally. I believe Dr. Wilson took care of that, but she would, if she was being hired by another district, and she had already signed a contract here for next year. Not all superintendents honor this. Most do. Sometimes new people come in to state. I was schooled on this pretty quickly about what my expectations, what were expectations of me to make a call to Londonderry, to make a call in the event that you were trying to hire somebody under contract. So this would be that kind of situation where she was under contract and hired by somebody else. They would call here and get the blessing of this district to release her from the contract. We typically would say, we're gonna bring it to the board, and the board will release on today's June 20th or whatever, hopefully.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify, so typically you do follow that collegial practice?
I do, yeah. I do, or I have Dr. Wilson do it, depends.
Oh, okay, but it wasn't followed in the
Well,
case of Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, I called myself.
You
It would
called
be
yourself?
me to me.
But
Yeah.
I understand that, but,
Yeah.
but this board was not aware of it.
It's not a board, the board's not involved in that. It's superintendent
Well-
to superintendent. It's not a board-to-board thing. It's a superintendent to superintendent.
Just,
There's a conflict.
Not a problem.
It's the same superintendent.
And when it's a promotion, it's pretty much cut and dry. Most people say congratulations. That's typically
Point of
what they
order,
do.
Mr. Chairman, it's this resignation for this science teacher that's on the,
Thank you.
Okay, call the question. All
Did
in
anybody
favor?
second that? I'm sorry, did anybody
I did.
second Sue?
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Boyle did.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Great, thanks. We're looking to rehire, to renomination, the professional staff, James Dion. He's been at our middle school, he's a social studies teacher.
I'll make a motion to renominate the professional middle school social studies teacher, James Dion.
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded.
I'm sorry, what's,
It's a renomination, it's somebody that worked for us that we recalled
I'm
because
sorry, I was lost. Go ahead.
Anybody
Call
else?
it.
just call the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Excellent. I'm going to skip down to the bottom to the other professional. We were fortunate to find a middle school science teacher, Alex Brown. So I'd like to nominate Alex Brown to become a science teacher at our middle school.
I'll make a motion to accept the nomination for Alex Brown to the middle school science teacher.
Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Call the
I'm sorry, I
question.
missed that second, Mr. Chair.
Lee.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor?
Okay, thank you. The next, the final administrators that were tabled at the last meeting, my understanding was that you'd like to hear from the building principal and our director, Christy Micho, in regards to process and hiring discussion. So I think that's probably something you'd want to do in non-public and then
Correct.
and then come back out of non-public at
Correct.
some point.
Correct.
So I'd ask if I could ask Nancy Stafford and Christy to stay. Is there anybody else that you'd want as part of the team?
Well, I know that was
She
gonna
is
be
there.
part of our non-public. Why don't we just finish up? We're wrapping it up here pretty quick. I don't see us going much forward, and we'll do the.
Is there anybody else that was part of the interview that you want other than those two?
Those were the two we
that-
asked for, right?
Yeah,
That's fine.
okay, that's
Asked
good.
for those two.
Okay. All right, so we'll table this and come back after non-public? Okay, excellent, thank you.
All right. Committee reports to the school board. Anybody? Start with you, Kim.
I'll be the longest. Sorry. I'll try to make this brief. The withdrawal committee met again last night. We are moving towards a public hearing the week of August 12th or August 19th, depending on availability of the SAU staff. We do have a draft plan, which is now posted. That's still a work in progress. We will be moving forward with working with that. I hope to have that done probably by the beginning of July for our legal counsel to review. I have requested that she attend the meeting on July 9th. I asked committee members to forward any questions they have for legal to me. If this board has any questions for legal that you would like answered at that time, that would be fine. There was a question as to whether or not legal counsel should attend the public hearing. I was told that typically that's not done. I would like to know what the board's feeling is on that in terms of having legal at the public hearing. I was against it initially, but I've had some conversations which lead me, and thought about it, which leads me to think that maybe we should have legal at that meeting. I'd like the board to weigh in on that. Sue's shaking her head yes.
I think so.
I would agree.
Absolutely.
Okay. Another topic that came up was when Karen Steele and John Hughes have done a tremendous job working on the fiscal analysis of the what we are now looking at proposing would be a single district SAU. One of the monetary savings that they looked at was savings in compensatory time, with the thought that moving forward as a single district SAU, that there would not be paid compensatory time to non-exempt salaried employees. There was discussion that was not a valid assumption to make, and I kind of agree with it at the time, but what I'm thinking now is that would be this, if we move towards a single district SAU, this board would be the one that would engage the contracts for that move. So I would, the question was, well, you have that policy in place at the SAU. Well, that's true, but we are looking at forming a new SAU. So I guess my question to this board is, and I'm not really sure how to do this, if we should take a motion or if we just come to some consensus. If we move to a single district SAU and we start to employ our own staff, would we be only giving compensatory time in terms of time and not pay, which is what's happening now, which is a financial cost to the SAU? Everybody follow that? Everybody's good with that? So comments, a consensus, talking?
Lawyer advice on that? How to go there, or haven't you
I have
talked
not,
to
I
that?
haven't had the conversation with the lawyer about it because I want to see what the board's thought is before I speak to the lawyer about it.
I would speak to the lawyer before any decision was made. That would be my advice.
But we're not going to meet before.
This won't be the same school board. Should you go through a withdrawal, excuse me, if you don't mind, do you mind if I speak? So I understand what Dr. Fair is saying, but what she's asking is for this board to give a consensus to their position on the compensation payout or process for Timberlane moving forward. The earliest, if there was to be a withdrawal, would not be for 1 to 2 years. This board may not even be the same board then. You're asking this board to take a position on. I'm just thinking.
I understand that, but
person, right? So I'm just thinking.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
how's that
thought
gonna
about
work?
that, but then I
Okay.
thought this happens all the time with boards because.
We're living with some of the aftermath of boards' decisions a
Right.
couple years ago.
So I don't think it's an invalid. I understand what you're saying.
But what I'm saying is that how do you create something, a rule about an organization that doesn't exist before it exists, when you
that's
aren't
why-
even the board that would have the authority over it?
But that
or
would be
you
part
wouldn't
of
be
the
all the
plan.
members. I
We're
was just
creating a
thinking
budget for a
logistically.
board that something
Oh,
that
I know,
so
it's
it
like
follows
that's-
along the same lines. Lee.
Yeah.
So
A Lego castle.
if I get you right, you're basically asking us for our position on a hypothetical situation so that way the withdrawal committee can make certain assumptions.
Correct.
In the plan.
Yeah.
I know what my viewpoint is relative to this comp time. It is you know, and when you're a non-exempt paid employee, you are, at least I would expect that, you know, it's a give and take relationship. There's some days that you're gonna have to work extra hours. There's also days that are on the opposite of that, and you get to enjoy that. It's a give and take relationship, and it should be discussed with your supervisor and acknowledged that, you know, I'm gonna work this Saturday, and I'm gonna expect to, you know, get this other day on off after that. That's it. When you're doing it where you can bank these hours, and one is it creates a legal liability to this district that's been carried on over, and one is the amount is not been known to the board previously. What is that exposure? I could say right now, I do not know what the exposure is for Timberlane's admins, and what kind of comp time do they have banked on up? Are we talking $10,000 of equivalent funds or $500,000? I have no idea. And that's one of the things that I was gonna be asking when we go around here, is I'd like to actually get an accounting of that, of what we have right now on the books of people.
For Timberlane?
For Timberlane.
Yeah, you got that, Kath?
Do now.
And yeah, so to answer your question, Kim, I would be more in it's a trade-off of time, but there would be no monetary dollar amount that you would get your salary that's already been negotiated, plus this additional kind of funds on top of it.
Okay.
Can I clarify the question? Is this for every Timberlane employee? Is this for professional staff? Is this for salaried people? What is, if you could help me?
I would like to know, I mean,
No, I
the
think-
liability aspect of that. Who has
Total.
comp time, and how much do they have?
Any employee that has comp time, or that has a contract that designates comp time,
I
what
mean-
is their current status of it?
We would.
What do they have
This
that?
is something that should be probably easily reducible, because you gotta keep track of it at some means.
Well, you also have to look at it in the SAU budget, we look at this as like an unfunded, or, I don't know, a liability that we have to budget for. So that's why it's important from a budgetary standpoint, too.
Correct, because that is an accountable expense that
Correct.
we need to carry over, because if we're gonna compensate monetarily for compensatory time, that's something that finance should be monitoring as a liability and an expense to the district. So there should be a line item somewhere for it.
And then it'd be, you know, as this liability keeps moving forward, you know, you'd hopefully that the funds would be there to appropriate it.
So
Okay,
it's no different
but-
than PTO time or
Okay.
vacation time. That is considered a monetary
So,
liability.
back to the question at hand, though, what is the board's feeling in terms of it? I will go to speak to legal counsel about this,
I don't
but,
know how I feel until I've heard some counsel. I don't know.
okay. I will confer with counsel.
And I think it's a discussion, I mean, looking at some of the contracts and what we've seen, moving forward to develop a stronger policy as to what we do for comp time in the future for future contracts. I mean, we have current contracts, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
But when we get into signing new contracts and moving forward, it's definitely something that needs to be looked at to figure out how we are going to handle it. But I think we need the information, I think we need a longer discussion on it. You know, we might not handle it the same way for each person. I mean,
Right.
there might be some contracts that we allow for it and some not, depending on what the trend is, what we're seeing. I mean, there might be times where it's justified, where giving the additional time becomes problematic as well. Because you don't want to have employees not here, because then they're not doing their job and able to perform their tasks. So I think it needs to be looked at as a whole. It's hard to answer that question off the cuff without having that further information, and determining where we're going to go in the future with these type of issues.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it'd be nice if you could do it for just time, but again, not knowing the hours and the time.
Well, I'm just speaking to the SAU, too. Non-exempt salaried employees, SAU level.
Again, I mean.
Oh, okay. It's still
there-
difficult to tell.
Well, it's still difficult. I mean, again, it depends. I mean, do we put a cap on it? I mean, is there some sort of, because again, having the employee actually in the building doing their task could be worth paying additional funds up to a certain
Yeah.
level per year, because you don't want to just have everyone not be here because they got comp time or there was some emergency that had to be addressed.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I do think there has to be some balance. I don't think you can strictly say none, but it depends on the employee, their role, and why they're accruing comp time. And the reason for it. I mean, there are some things that I don't think they should be getting paid for above and beyond as comp time, but there are other instances that may come up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had an emergency in one of our buildings and something happened, you know,
Right.
again, where's the level of that? So,
Right.
It's a unique situation.
yeah.
So, and the other thing on the withdrawal that pertains to the board is just, the question becomes, when does the board vote as to whether or not they're in agreement with the plan? I don't know as you would do that before the public hearing. I have to ask the lawyer about that, or do you wait till it goes to the warrant? Because it's kind of an odd sort of.
Again, ask the lawyer, and if we need to have a
I
special
will,
meeting, we'll pull
I'm
one.
just letting you know that we may need to have a meeting before it's
August
posted for
12th.
the public hearing if we need to have that vote. But I haven't asked the lawyer because I'm waiting for some other committee members if they have questions and I need to synthesize the questions a little bit more completely before I speak with her.
I think Wyndham Pelham was a pretty clean split, however they did it. When they split, in terms of, so, well, however, did Wyndham leave Pelham, did Pelham leave Wyndham, I don't know. But however they did it, it seemed to go pretty smoothly.
Wyndham.
Mm-hmm.
When they broke up and created 2 new SAUs.
I'm
Well, that may help you as to when the board weighed in, did they weigh in before the public hearing or after the public hearing?
Oh, okay,
That might be easy to research.
Actually, no, because when those two split, all their documents were lost.
Oh,
Pretty much, we can't find anything really from Salem and Wyndham's withdrawals.
and the people are all gone.
Yep, yep, because no one, whoever was supposed to, we haven't, because we'd been wanting to look at Salem and Wyndham, we can't find stuff. That's the answer to that one.
Especially the school
I know,
district, not even having
the superintendents are gone too, so I couldn't even call one of them.
It got lost in the transition.
All right, still on committee updates. Anything policy-wise?
No, nothing for me.
Sheila?
Nope.
Nope. Nope.
We just a small little update on the TSSU. They did have a meeting yesterday. I wasn't able to attend, I had to work, but I know Nancy said she was gonna email us out the dates that they were able to agree on for the fall, for the negotiation.
Lori was just here, but she had to leave, so she sends her apologies.
Yeah, so we were able to get those dates set, and so we'll be moving forward with that in the fall. And then just, on my report from the school board member, June, the beginning of the month was super busy, obviously, as a parent, but also as a school board member. I was able to go to the scholarship night, the senior awards night, graduation, which was an amazing event. It was a beautiful day, the sun burned to prove it. And then the teacher retirement dinner, which was just always such a great night, so, yeah.
CIP meeting is scheduled for June 26th, 7 PM here, and we'll see where we're at. Wellness update, we are working on the flyer, or not we, they are working on the flyer. I've seen a rough draft of it, looks really good. We've got a lot of good stuff. The time is gonna be 12:30 to 5:30, so we are expanding the hours of the Wellness Expo or Fair. And of course, the new location is at the Y, so that's a nice partnership. They'll have lots of space for us. We are gonna have the Bloodmobile there, so that's really very exciting, and I thank the people that have we formed a subcommittee to work on that, because there's a lot of logistics involved in that. School board report, I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend graduation. I have had some family things, but I did get to go to the retirement. It was one of my favorite evenings, and it was a great event. It was at Brookstone. The ambiance was beautiful. It was beautifully organized. Lots of room to walk around. The food was good. The company was good. The speeches were good. It was just a very long night.
But much better than Game 7.
And I didn't miss Game 7, so, but it was great. So
It was a
I'm
great
glad we
night.
still continue to do that. I think it's a tradition that's well worth recognizing our retirees.
I would agree, and thank you for attending in my absence.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other business to come before the board? Okay, one of the last things before going to non-public is I want to do on future dates. I would like to actually recommend to the board that we keep our schedule going as is. I know the next one would be July 4th, which is a Thursday, which would be the normal sequence that we would do. I would be looking to forego that one, but the second, the third Thursday, which would be the normal one in July, the first one in August, and the normal one we would have, it would be the third Thursday in August. So we're only basically having 2 meetings over the summer, is what I like to propose to the board.
So you're proposing, I'm sorry, you're proposing July 18th
July 18th, I believe, is the date,
and
and
August, another one in 1st of August?
Yeah.
The first week in August, that first Thursday. Doing it off my head, I don't use my phone for that, so.
August
Plus the
1st.
22nd, which is our scheduled one. So we'd have 2 in August, 1 in July.
correct.
What's the August one?
August 1st.
August 1st, according to the calendar.
So then the second one would be what, the?
It's the
22nd.
22nd.
It's already on the
22nd's on the calendar.
That's on the calendar already.
So what would that be, like the
15th?
fourth Thursday? No, wait, it's the
the
third
third
Thursday.
The 22nd would be the 4th.
Well, it was just the one you picked before the opening of school.
Yeah,
You
I
picked
think.
that one, yeah.
Typically, that one is 1 week later.
Right. So we could have it before the school.
I would be flexible of the days. I just, would like us to keep meeting and keep,
I think you should have one in July, at least tentatively set up a date, only because you may need something from us.
we might have
As far as withdrawal
updates with this
committees or whatever.
architectural stuff.
Right.
What about
This-
1 in July and 1 in August, and have that one on the 22nd in August, and skip that one in the middle? So we give us 4 weeks between hiring, we'd have hirings probably, and we'll know more about the projects by then.
Public hearing.
Yeah.
I'm gone
But the 18th
all
and
of
8th.
July and not back till the second week of August, so
Okay.
I won't be.
So July 18th and August 8th.
August what?
July 18th, August 8th, and then resume with the August 22nd.
8th, 22nd, and 18th, that would be 3
Yeah,
meetings.
July 18th, August 8th, and August 22nd.
I'm fine with that.
Because if the withdrawal needs something, and you're looking at the 12th to the 19th, Kim, right? Correct?
Right,
So
so,
the 8th would make sense for us to,
well, July
July
18th is
18th
when,
She'll need
that
us.
meeting, we should plan to review or discuss the withdrawal plan, so that I have board input before, once we have the public hearing, that the withdrawal committee will probably meet one more time to make changes as needed. And then that is going to go up to the Department of Ed. We're hoping to get it up there for the September meeting of the Department of Education.
So you'll need us, when are you meeting in July? The 8th?
Well, I don't need you at our meeting, but I
I
think
know.
on the 18th, we're meeting on the 9th,
The 9th.
and I would expect that we'll have, the report will be completed almost in its entirety by the 9th, so that we'll have it prepared for posting for the public hearing no later than the 22nd. We've tentatively scheduled another meeting in July in case we don't get it done, like, I think it was July 23rd,
Yeah, I think it was.
was to make any changes after the 9th.
So the 18th will probably be a good date.
The 18th would be good, because if this board has changes, then we can incorporate those before it gets posted for the public hearing.
I'm out of the state on the 18th. I will not be around, so I don't know what Kathy's schedule looks like, but I don't have an assistant superintendent. We'll have to find somebody. Try to find somebody. We'll try to find somebody to film for you.
Okay.
As long as we can keep these meetings to, specific, really important business, and, not go off into the weeds about stuff and get work done and, not spend 4 hours here on the 18th, the 8th, and the 22nd.
Yeah, no,
I think I'm doing pretty good tonight.
You're doing great.
Not to jinx us,
Well,
though.
like I said, on the 18th, I'll make sure the board has the draft plan. You can read it in advance, and then we can buzz right through it. It's only 25 pages.
I have a reader.
All right, so we all in agreement with the 18th, July 18th, August 8th, and August 22nd? Good. Okay. Gonna make that as the consensus of the board?
All you need is 5.
Huh?
All you need is 5 to have a meeting.
No, I know, but I wanna have as much people interjecting as
People shouldn't
possible.
give up their lives.
Okay, Sheila?
Under other business, sorry, but, can we put on the back burner? I don't see it here, maybe I'm missing something. But for the coming up meetings, as far as August 22nd, athletics. And also, I'm actually looking for, what the plan is, if Saruska's still with us, if Saruska's not with us, how we're dealing with these, extra assistance that we need, if Saruska's going out of business, what's going on with
It's
Saruska?
a general update of Ceres.
Anybody?
An update on Ceres, what's their status? Are they gonna be around? Are they?
Are we answering that now, or-
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how promptly our consultants are being paid, which is a bit of a concern, in fairness, but aside from that, I have not heard of there any change in status with them.
Okay.
So we're not having a problem? You don't foresee a problem next year getting consultants, whatever we need through Saruska?
Susan's still here? Yeah, so Susan,
Special education, we are looking for speech and language pathologists, psychologists. But we're also looking at several other agencies outside of Saruska.
Thank you. That's what I'm just trying to make sure we're all set. Thank you.
so
Is that to not put all our eggs in one basket sort of thing, to spread it out?
Thank you.
Very wise move.
we've been trying to like eliminate single points of failure in the event, and so I've asked a number of times, and so prior to Susan, even Beth Rincon, we've been good. It's just, a lot of times other agencies cost a little bit more, right? So she's doing the work.
Thank you.
Weren't we supposed to also be getting an update on the bullying and the no bullying? All of that was supposed to be coming before us too, and we haven't seen that yet.
End of year baseline data, I believe is what you would ask for, so we can kind of judge in terms of effectiveness of no bully. We do have that. We're looking for the state in terms of your substantiated bullying. They've combined junior high, or middle school rather, and the high school, so we're trying to get those pieces out so that when we look at it by elementary, middle, and high, it's effective, but the trend seems to be elementary is less, but we do have that still on our agenda for getting you the specific numbers, so when we go into the next year, it's there.
So should we get that on
Back
an
burner?
agenda, so it's,
Kathy's got it.
22nd?
Well, in the back burner anyways.
Okay. All right, I guess that's gonna end our meeting. We're gonna go into non-public under 91A, Roman 2.
Do you want June to stay, if you're gonna come back out and announce anything, or just find?
Well, we're gonna come out, we have to make,
Yeah, we'll have to make an announcement, but I
Right.
mean,
You
it
want
could
a
be on
motion?
video, it could be not on video. I'm okay with that either. But it will be,
What do
be
you want
done.
to do? Do you want it on video or not?
Welcome back from our non-public, back into public session. I'm going to seek a motion to seal our minutes from the non-public.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session under reputation, 91A:3.
I second it.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call vote, Kathy?
Mr. Boyle?
yes.
Mr. Dubey?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's?
Yes.
Mrs. Mockamer?
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill?
Yes.
Mrs. Savage?
Yes.
And Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Minutes are sealed.
Okay, morning, Mr. Seal. I'll do motions for the renominations for Douglas Blay, Megan Ganucci, and
Wansi.
Sorry, Megan.
And her husband's
Larry.
And James Pelletier, on recommendations from the superintendent.
Did you want to do one at a time, Shauna? Do you want to do it all at once, or how do you want to?
One at a time, please.
One at a time?
One at
All
a
right, then
time,
I'd
then.
like to nominate Douglas Blay as Paulette School Principal.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. And any further discussion? If not, call for a vote. All those in favor?
4, 5, 6.
All those opposed? All those abstain?
Thank you.
Abstentions. Okay. Next one is Megan
Guanci.
Guanci.
Megan Guanci.
I will admit that's,
Irish.
well, which is even sad for me to, I've always butchered names that are
Don't
not.
slam in the Irish.
So it's just basically part of my
So Italian,
characteristics.
honey, just get over it.
And so I'd be seeking a motion for that. Sue?
I was going to demur to Sheila, but a motion to nominate and approve Megan Guanzi as Assistant Principal at Sandown North.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Call for a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous. And the last one we'll be seeking is a motion.
Sure. I'll make a motion to nominate James Pelletier to be the assistant principal at Paul School.
I'll second.
Made, seconded by Sarah. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
4, 5, 6.
Okay, all those opposed? All those abstain? Okay. All right. That concludes our school board meeting for this evening. We're going to adjourn. Good night.